Chapter 874. There was no longer a smile on Chu Feng's face. He looked calm, but the depths of his eyes were extremely abstruse. A storm was brewing within them as he returned to the bustling area. Qin Luoyin had entered a bamboo forest midway, and was protected by Chu Feng's domains. He told her not to show herself for the time being. Brother Chu Feng, why did you come back? An old man blinked his eyes in surprise. He was making fun of him. Wasn't he going to the bridal chamber? Why did he come back? Hey brother, are you okay? Don't tell me your kidneys are weak. Why did you come back so quickly? The black yak was drunk and reeked of alcohol. At this moment, he had a large cigar in his mouth, and was walking over in a daze. He didn't even try to hide his words. Chu Feng's solemn expression and murderous intent diluted quite a bit in the end. He really wanted to press down on the other party's head and throw him into the lake. Divine King Chu, didn't you say a moment of spring is worth 1,000 pieces of gold? Why didn't you enter the bridal chamber? Did you miss us? A sexy saintess teased him. Her eyes were roving, her arms were white, and her waist was slender. She was twisting her way over. A group of young men and outstanding talents from various races revealed odd expressions in their eyes. They were all looking forward to what would happen. It would be best if Demon King Chu couldn't enter the bridal chamber. At the same time, the people watching the live broadcast from all over the universe were astonished. They revealed hopeful expressions because Qin Luoyin had too many fans. I'm so happy that Demon King Chu Feng didn't enter the bridal chamber. Could it be that something happened and he quarreled with Goddess Qin? That's why she chased him out, haha. I'm looking forward to it. This wedding mustn't continue. I really don't want my goddess to enter the tiger's den. The starry skies were even livelier than the wedding scene. Countless people were astonished and widened their eyes, waiting for the latest result. At the scene, Chu Feng smiled. How can I enter the bridal chamber in advance with so many esteemed guests here? I drank too much just now, so I'm going to sober up. Is that so? Since that's the case, let's continue drinking. Some of the youths immediately became spirited. They had already drunk too much and wanted to pull Chu Feng over and get him drunk. Not to mention them, even the group of great demons from Kunlun, Old Donkey, Manchurian Tiger, Mastiff King, and the others were all intoxicated. The 1,000-year-old wine was unbearable, and just a little bit of the 10,000-year-old royal wine was enough to make one drunk. Now it was impossible to count on a bunch of great demons to help him block the wine. Brother, you're walking right into their trap. In a while, you'll be drunk by these bastards. The Manchurian Tiger had drunk too much. He was holding the 9 Lives Cat Race's Saintess with one hand and the Golden Wolf Saint's son's neck with the other. The Golden Wolf Saint child was infuriated. It was one thing for a pervert like you to flirt with the Cat Race's Saintess, but why did you have to hug him and not let go? If it wasn't for the fact that the tyrant godhead was glaring at him like a tiger watching its prey, he definitely wouldn't be able to tolerate it. What happened? Yellow Cattle asked in a low voice. It didn't drink much. At the same time, young lady she also came over. Her lustrous and beautiful face was now flushed. She hiccuped and looked languid and delicate. Her starry eyes were hazy. Ouyang Feng's mouth reeked of alcohol, but he was still very cautious. He looked at Chu Feng with extreme vigilance. Chu Feng secretly transmitted his voice and said, "Tell the brothers to sober up and be on guard. I'm going to kill people in a while. Don't let those treacherous people take advantage of the chaos to hurt our people." After that, he turned around and left. Golden runes appeared in the depths of his eyes. He used the fiery eyes to sweep through the crowd to find those with evil intentions. His heart was surging with killing intent. He couldn't wait to kill that little saint from the outer realm who came with evil intentions. This time, he actually dared to target him. He was vicious and treacherous. At the same time, he was too domineering. He even wanted to change the groom? This was too humiliating. Yellow Cattle and Ouyang Feng sobered up the moment Chu Feng turned around. They quickly informed the Black Yak, the Old Donkey, the Mastiff King, Wu Qifeng, the Old Llama, and the others. Meanwhile, young Lady Xi's beautiful eyes were wide open. She started to wave her heavenly umbrella and looked around. A group of people was notified. Naturally, Chu Feng's parents were the ones to be protected. Next, Chu Feng also informed the damning Pure Land during the process of looking for people. He explained the situation in a simple and clear manner, which made the group of old monsters burn with anger. Someone actually broke into the bridal chamber and wanted to attack the bride during the wedding of the damning Pure Land. This was 2F** King Arrogant. The group of old men usually cultivated themselves, but now they were about to explode. Especially since one of their old friends and one of their companions had died. He was killed in the Pure Land and died a tragic death at home. They immediately wanted to skin the murderer alive. This was the damning Pure Land, not the Outer Realms. No matter how powerful the people from the chaotic universe were, their top experts couldn't come here. What right did they have to humiliate and kill people so wantonly? If it wasn't for the fact that they had lived for a long time and were shrewd, they might have exploded if it was someone else. After all, the damning Pure Land had never been humiliated like this before. Someone killed their senior sister in their home, and even insulted the bride and saintess. This was intolerable. The group of old monsters remained calm and collected. They began to secretly make arrangements and take action. They swore to kill this visitor from the Outer Realms. What little saint! He couldn't be insolent here. When they knew that Chu Feng wanted to kill people, the old monsters in the Pure Land all supported him. They suddenly felt that this demon wasn't bad. Chu Feng held a cup of wine in his hand. Although many people wanted to compete with him in drinking and get him drunk, the suppressive might that circulated after he revealed a few order runes made the hearts of the group palpitate. Many people stopped in their tracks. He strolled in this bustling area and concentrated on looking for people. This place was the saint's seclusion place. There were many beautiful mountain peaks standing side by side. In front of them was an extremely spacious plaza where the guests had gathered like clouds. At the same time, the plaza was adjacent to a few medicinal fields. Although there were domains sealing them, people could still enjoy the wondrous scenery. Orchids sprouted, verdant orchids, sacred trees bloomed, and a rain of flowers swayed. Every medicinal field was abnormally splendid. 5-colored divine light rushed into the sky and 7-colored splendor circulated. There was a sacred and fragrant domain wafting out. As for the plaza in front of it, there was a large lake. It was verdant and dark green like a piece of translucent jewel, reflecting sparkling and translucent splendor. There were all kinds of strange creatures swimming in the lake. There were big fish, 1,000-year-old silver turtles, and creatures suspected to be flood dragons. Found them. Chu Feng held a wine cup and found a few people by the lake. Runes circulated in the depths of his golden eyes. He saw through these people at a glance and found that they had quasi-sage auras. To be precise, there was a quasi-sage origin sealed in their bodies. It was similar to Luo Shang, whom he had killed a month ago. It was also similar to the 3 people he had killed not long ago. There was a total of 6 people, and 5 of them had quasi-sage origin auras. They were powerful and not weaker than the previous 3. And among them, the last person had ordinary looks and could only be considered an ordinary person. However, his temperament was outstanding. He was lazy and didn't seem to care about anything. He sat on the grassy ground and sipped at the lake while the other 5 surrounded him. Chu Feng felt that this person was very dangerous. This was the first time he had sensed a certain level of threat. To put it bluntly, he had beaten everyone in the same generation, and it was very difficult for him to meet an opponent now. And now, he finally felt that a character worthy of him going all out and killing seriously had appeared. But he was also startled and angry. It was very likely that such a powerful outsider was targeting him. 3 minor saints. This must be one of them. Chu Feng walked past them in a very natural manner, and began to search for the other two groups of people, without alarming them. Needless to say, the first group of people was very powerful. They had sensed Chu Feng even when he walked past them. Looking at his figure disappearing into the crowd of guests, one of them revealed a mocking smile and said, "He's very strong, but also very stupid. He doesn't even know that his bride is going to enter someone else's bridal chamber tonight." Apparently, the information was not symmetrical. They only received news of success from the white-haired man and thought that they had abducted Qin Luoyin. They didn't receive any further news that the 3 people had been killed. Chu Feng seemed to be passing by, but his spiritual will was highly concentrated as he had been paying attention to them. Even when he entered the crowd and people wanted to propose a toast to him, he was still paying attention to those 6 people. Now, he was paying attention with his most powerful divine instinct and could vaguely hear that person's voice. His expression immediately turned gloomy because it was indeed them. 3 minor saints from the outer realm had come. There was no need to search for the other 2 groups of people. He could already confirm that they were the first group with malicious intent. Of course, Chu Feng also had to figure out the movements of the other 2 groups of people before he could be at ease. Beside the lake, on the grassy ground, another person said, "If it were up to me, we should just cripple him and trample him under our feet. What's the point of tormenting him like this? How dare he kill someone from my primal chaotic deity palace? He really doesn't know the difference between life and death." Needless to say, he said that the person who was crippled and trampled under his feet was Chu Feng. This group of people came with the greatest malicious intent. At this moment, Chu Feng didn't walk far from the crowd and was paying close attention to them. Even if there was a cauldron of voices, he could still vaguely hear their conversation. In an instant, he understood everything. These were people from the primal chaotic deity palace. They were Luo Shang's clansmen whom he killed a month ago. Beside the lake, another person said, "Hee, what's the difference between directly crushing him and stepping on a bug? If we don't torment him, how can we let him experience boundless pain? We need to tear his heart out. Yes, we'll start with the bride and then move on to his parent. It just so happens that the 2 of them are also at the scene. We'll make him suffer so much that he'll wish he was dead and be extremely miserable." Someone said in an awe-inspiring manner, "That's right. Luo Shang is our clan's core disciple and our cousin. How dare he kill a native from the netherworld cosmos so brazenly and wantonly? He's tired of living. We'll make him die 100 times more painful." Chu Feng immediately understood why these people were so hostile toward him. It was because the Earth and the deity race from the netherworld cosmos were mortal enemies and had almost been annihilated. Moreover, he had defeated the deity race's younger generation divine sons and others. A month ago, he had also killed Luo Shang from the primal chaotic deity palace in the outer realms. Naturally, this enmity was formed. When the deity race came looking for trouble with me, I confronted you in an upright manner and killed my opponent. Now that you dare to use underhanded methods against me, you must pay the price. Chu Feng's gaze was chilly. Beside the lake, someone asked, "Little Saint, are you satisfied with that Qin Luoyin? I reckon she's already been sent to your room." "I'm very satisfied. She's peerless and elegant." The young man in the lead finally spoke. His appearance was ordinary, but his temperament was extraordinary. He had a faint smile on his face as though he wasn't interested in anything and had a lazy look on his face. The so-called Little Saint was the strongest descendant of this generation from the primal chaotic deity palace. In the primal chaotic universe, there weren't many people in their generation who were honored as Little Saint. That's good. As his cousin, we can rest assured now that the Little Saint is satisfied. Ha! That person smiled and said, "Let that Chu Feng be in a daze in a while. There'll be no bride on the wedding night. This is going to be fun. Let's see how he ends up flustered and exasperated. After the little saint has rested, we'll go find him at dawn and tell him the truth. At the same time, we'll strangle him. This group of people was very vicious. If they were to put their plan into action and succeed, it would naturally be a huge blow to Chu Feng. It would be the greatest humiliation in his life. The depths of Chu Feng's eyes were like 10,000-year-old ice. He was really infuriated and wished he could kill them all immediately. He had never wanted to kill as much as he did now. However, he restrained himself and left this place without leaving a trace. He searched for the other 2 little saints from the other clans in the crowd. He had to grasp their movements to prevent any accidents from happening. Finally, he found out that the other 2 groups of people were also drinking. They were very aloof and very conceited. Even though they were disguised as ordinary guests, they didn't allow outsiders to disturb them. Chu Feng knew what was going on. After he knew where they were, he already paid attention to them. After that, he walked straight towards the 6 people from the primal chaotic deity palace. These 6 people were too vicious. He didn't want to delay for even a moment and wanted to kill them immediately. When they saw Chu Feng walking over, the others naturally toasted. Only these 6 people had smiles on their faces and looked very aloof. They couldn't be bothered to pay attention to Chu Feng. Only when he approached and arrived at the lakeside did the 6 of them confirm that he took the initiative to come to them. Only then did they put down their wine cups and stared at him. Chu Feng, congratulations on your wedding day. Hee, the bride is really tender and not bad, one of them said. The smile on his face was very thick and there was a sense of mockery in the depths of his eyes. If one didn't know who they were and didn't understand their malicious thoughts, one might ignore their words and actions. However, Chu Feng knew that they had already seen through everything. Now that he heard such words, he naturally knew their malicious intentions. He could also hear that they were mocking him. Saying that the bride was tender and not bad actually carried deep malice. Another of the 6 people said, "Brother Chu, come, let me toast you. However, don't drink too much. Be careful that you can't be the groom on your wedding night. There are many people here who are eyeing you covetously." There was also mockery in the depths of his eyes, but he concealed it very well. Those who didn't know the inside story naturally wouldn't understand the problem in his words. However, Chu Feng understood and knew very well what was going on. He could feel the full malice and the excitement of self-righteousness before the truth was revealed. "Yes, my hospitality wasn't good enough. Did you guys drink to your heart's content?" Chu Feng smiled. His white teeth were suffused with luster. He looked very splendid. Very carefree, very happy, haha. Some of the 6 people laughed loudly. They became more and more unbridled and even revealed some flaws on their faces. There was contempt and disdain, thinking that Chu Feng still didn't know anything. His bride had been snatched away, yet he still wanted to toast them. "Since you're drinking to your heart's content, then, let's go." Chu Feng didn't toast at all. Instead, he suddenly poured a cup of wine on the 2 people at the front. Just now, it was also them who were secretly mocking Chu Feng. At the same time, Chu Feng immediately attacked. His body was surrounded by tens of thousands of golden lights. He circulated the robbery induction breathing technique and activated the lightning fist. It contained a demonic nature and shocked the world. Boom! With just a single punch, the smiling man who had secretly mocked Chu Feng for not being a bridegroom at night was killed. The man exploded on the spot and turned into a rain of blood and shattered bones. And you! The moment Chu Feng blasted out his fist, he flew forward diagonally and kicked the face of the man who had praised Qin Luoyin. Ah! The man screamed miserably as his mouth exploded and his face disintegrated. Then, his head and body split into pieces with a boom. He died on the spot. The minor saint reacted quickly and suddenly swung his fist. His fist was like a great golden sun, suppressing the heaven and earth and shaking people's hearts. Many people in the vicinity trembled and wanted to kneel down. He wanted to kill Chu Feng and stop him from killing him. Chapter 875. In the Pure Land, beautiful mountains rose and fell. There were many strange flowers and trees that emitted auspicious clouds. There was also a huge lake that was blue and translucent. Mist like the clouds of the immortal path floated in the air. No one had expected a fierce battle to break out in front of the clear lake on the grassy land. It was too sudden. The most important thing was that one of them was the groom. His battle aura surged, and he emitted an astonishing light beam. He rose into the air and started a massacre. In this short moment, Chu Feng had already killed 2 experts with just a punch and a kick. Normally speaking, an evolver with a quasi-saint origin in his body was very terrifying. It was too difficult for the younger generation of the underworld universe to kill such a person. However, Chu Feng's lightning fist was filled with tens of thousands of arcs of electricity. It seemed to shatter the void and pierce through eternity. That person exploded under the terrifying golden fist seal. At the same time, Chu Feng kicked another person until he exploded. He attacked with the power of thunder and hatred, dyeing the grassland with his blood and causing the waves of the calm lake to hit the sky. This was just the beginning. Chu Feng's battle had just begun and hadn't ended yet. He was already targeted by the minor saint in midair and was blasted over. It had to be said that this minor saint from the chaotic universe was too terrifying. The heaven and earth trembled with every move he made. The spiritual mountains in the surroundings were shaking and boulders were rolling. Cracks appeared on the ground of the plaza and the grassland in front. The energy this person emitted was too terrifying. With a bang, his fist collided with Chu Feng's right foot. It was like a comet colliding with the earth, emitting an earth-shattering light. In the end, it crashed and a destructive aura erupted and swept in all directions. It had to be said that the minor saint from the outer universe was too powerful. His whole body was gushing with divine light like dancing flames. That was the most magnificent energy, exuberant and terrifying. It enveloped his whole body like a blazing sun. At this moment, he was retreating in the great collision. Even if there were domains on the ground, they were crushed and collapsed by his stomp. At the same time, he emitted a terrifying aura. Meanwhile, Chu Feng was also flying in midair. This was the first time he was so surprised. Since his debut, he had never met such a terrifying opponent among people of similar age. He was flying backward. The sole of his foot was in severe pain and his blood flow was not smooth. It was as if his bones were broken. Boom! In the blink of an eye, he changed his breathing technique and circulated the immortal bird race's incomplete breathing technique, that young lady she had passed on to him. It was sufficient for his current realm. In a breath of time, scarlet light overflowed from his body, especially the fiery red ball of light at his soles. It was as if magma was gushing out. Fiery light surged, surging, and energy fluctuated. Following that, his body emitted a crackling sound. His joints were moving, and his entire body erupted with brilliance. Upon closer inspection, it was as if he was wrapped in fiery red magma. The immortal bird race was a top-notch race even in the Yang realm. They looked down on the great desolate land and were not afraid of any race's challenges. There were almighty figures who had lived for an incomparably long time overseeing the race. Their breathing technique was the most suitable for healing injuries. It was incomparable. In an instant, the blood in Chu Feng's feet flowed smoothly. Even the slight damage to his flesh and bones had completely healed. However, Chu Feng's expression was grave. Even after entering the cosmos, this was the first time he had been so passive. He had almost suffered a great loss with just one strike. Chu Feng, how dare you kill my people? The little saint from the primal chaos universe, Luo Yong, put away his lazy smile. His temperament had completely changed. There was killing intent on his face, and he was no longer lazy. He was like a divine sword that had been unsheathed. Golden light shone for tens of thousands of meters as he revealed his sharpness. He was so piercing that many evolvers' hair stood on end as they retreated continuously. In reality, many people had already suffered from the impact just now. They were intimidated by the might of the two who were confronting each other. Their bodies were trembling, and some people had already fallen to the ground. Originally, there was a boiling cauldron of voices. The wedding banquet was filled with people competing over wine everywhere. The guests from various races in the cosmos were all evolvers with extraordinary strength. But now it was quiet. Everyone was dumbfounded. No one had expected that there would be a bloody conflict at the wedding banquet. Moreover, it was the groom who had taken action, and killing intent pervaded the sky and earth. "You're nothing. Not only will I kill them, but I'll also annihilate you," said Chu Feng. There was a ball of flame in his heart that resonated with his soul light after it was ignited. Today, he was truly angry. This group of people were too sinister and malicious. Only by killing them all could he vent his anger. He wasn't a bloodthirsty person, but he couldn't restrain himself today. This group of people had gone too far, and they had come brimming with malice. "Fourth brother, fifth brother." At the lakeside, the other three who were standing together with the small saint, Luo Yong, shouted loudly. Their eyes had long since become scarlet red like blood. Now, they couldn't save them even if they wanted to. Those two had been blown up by Chu Feng, and only blood and bones were left. "Chu Feng, who do you think you are? You dare to kill our people?" One of them shouted loudly. They were used to being arrogant on ordinary days, and they simply couldn't accept this reality. They had originally come to find trouble with Chu Feng. They wanted to torment and humiliate him like a cat toying with a mouse. In the end, they would mend him until he was crippled, and then kill him. How could they have foreseen that the beginning would be so unfavorable? It could even be said that it was miserable. Two of their cousins had died in a short while. They had been blown up by Chu Feng with a punch and a kick, and they died without an intact corpse. They had mustered a large force to come and toy with Chu Feng, but in the end they were killed. There's nothing more to say. I'll kill you with my own hands. There's no need to torment you slowly. Trash, you're nothing in my eyes. Die. The small saint, Luo Yong, only had an ordinary appearance, but now, his temperament was outstanding. He was like a divine spear that could pierce through the firmament. His golden light tore through all matter. It was too swift and fierce. In his surroundings, the plants and trees were blasted into pieces. Those landscape stones that were tens of tons in weight were all floating around him, and then exploded. An invisible force field curled up around him with a terrifying aura. What's going on? What's the reason? In the vicinity, many people were bewildered and ran backward one after another. That was because the energy Luo Yong had displayed was too terrifying. Whoever was close to him would be unlucky, and would be caught in the crossfire. The famous guests from various races, as well as those saint children and goddesses, were all indescribably astonished. They simply didn't understand the situation and had no idea what was going on. Now, only the Black Blood platform and the Origin Beast platform were pleasantly surprised. They were so excited that they were trembling. To them, this was the best material and was enough to ignite their eyeballs. Just think about it. The great demon King Chu Feng's boundless murderous aura was confronting an incomparably terrifying and mysterious expert in a life-and-death battle. There was no more explosive news than this. For a moment, all the clairvoyants on the major platforms were aimed at the lakeside and captured the two people in the center. They all realized that a shocking storm was about to engulf every region. Where did this group of grandsons come from? The big black yak hadn't completely sobered up yet. He roared loudly and broke the silence. Hee-haw, motherf asterisk cur. How dare you come and disturb my brother's wedding day? You deserve to be punished. The old donkey was also roaring with the smell of alcohol. Beside him, a saint child reminded, "It's Chu Feng who killed them. He killed 2 experts in succession with just 1 punch and 1 kick." The old donkey was speechless, but he quickly reacted and said, "You can imagine how angry my brother is. This group of Juntua bastards must have done something that angers both men and gods. They must be killed." The scene couldn't calm down. Just the number of races participating in the wedding was over 10,000, not to mention the specific number. There was no end to it. Everyone was discussing and watching the scene closely. In the universe, the people watching the live broadcast were in an uproar. At first, everyone was flabbergasted. Then, everyone was shaken. The clamor resounded through the skies and occurred everywhere. Explosive news. A huge change has occurred in the great demon King Chu Feng's wedding. Are they here to snatch the wedding? They're definitely not simple. They dare to cause trouble for Chu Feng. These people are so powerful. Don't you see that they've made Chu Feng's eyes red? How terrifying! Didn't you see? Just now, Chu Feng didn't gain the upper hand in the confrontation with that person. At most, they were evenly matched. This person is simply too terrifying. He's too powerful. A huge storm appeared in the starry skies. The wedding that had drawn the attention of the world was still being broadcasted, but people were already paying attention to the battle. Many people were very excited and didn't mind the commotion getting bigger. Beside the azure lake in damning Pure Land. "Chu Feng, go to hell." Luo Yong took large strides forward. His ordinary appearance seemed extraordinary under his powerful aura. His skin was golden and his pores were gushing with blazing energy radiance. He was like a deity descending to the mortal world. His majestic gait intimidated the experts of all races. Chu Feng stood in the air, and his killing intent intensified. "You're the ones who will die. None of you can leave. I don't care if you're from the chaotic universe or the world of the living. I won't rest until you die since you dare to disturb my wedding." He attacked once more and dove down. Boom! At the same time, Luo Yong raised his hand and a golden arm appeared. It was hundreds of meters long and reached into the void. It was enough to easily tear a mountain apart. Bang! Chu Feng stood high in the sky and lifted his foot to stomp down fiercely. Runes transformed into a large foot that was similarly formed by glaring energy. It was deafening and even the firmament was trembling. It was as though 2 gods had struck across space. The sky trembled as the ground cracked open and rocks rushed into the sky. As for the lake, huge waves were startled into the sky. "You dare to get away with killing my cousin? I'll use your clan's blood as a sacrifice to my clan's core disciples." Little Saint Luo Yong's voice was gloomy, but it carried a powerful might. Chu Feng knew that he wasn't just talking about the two, just now, but also Luo Shang from a month ago. However, he was somewhat astonished. A month ago, he had transformed into Wu Luanhui and wasn't Chu Feng. How could the other party be so sure that it was him now? "You think I'm the murderer?" He held back his murderous intent and couldn't help but ask. Boom! Little Saint Luo Yong rose from the ground like a flood dragon from prehistoric times. His whole body was covered in runes as he tore apart the void and roamed the universe. He immediately rushed over to kill Chu Feng. "You want to muddle through after killing my clan's core disciple? You're too naive. Your death isn't worth pitying," said Luo Yong. A small monkey appeared on his shoulder. It was actually made of stone, and only its eyes were made of flesh. It was very terrifying. One of its eyes was pitch black while the other was deathly white. It emitted black and white rays of light. A natural-born creature, the yin-yang monkey. There's actually such a thing. At this time, the heart of an old monster from the quasi-immortal race throbbed. He felt his hair stand on end. This was a mystical creature that would definitely become divine after it matured. This thing was bred from a stone embryo. After hatching, its eyes were even more powerful than the clairvoyance. That was because it could not only see very roundly and was comparable to the clairvoyance, but it could also communicate with yin and yang and see the auras of life and death. It could explore a person's yin and yang qi, life and death qi, and thus lock onto them. It was precisely this yin-yang monkey that discovered that Chu Feng had killed Luo Shang. It used its eyes to look back on his body and sense the scene before Luo Shang's death. It could be said that this creature was very heaven-defying. Of course, this kind of ability had a time limit. After too much time had passed, it had no way of looking back. It was impossible for a pair of eyes to see through all the truths of the world. This thing is very terrifying. It's not just its eyes but also its cries. It's simply a life-threatening talisman. The Buddhist race's Kuning elder was all skin and bones, but golden light curled around his body like an old Buddha. He spoke in a low voice and explained the fierceness of this creature. In this part of the cosmos, one had appeared before. Moreover, it had grown up and killed a few heaven illuminators, causing a great bloodbath. Correct, during the origin beast era of destruction, a creature like this had appeared before. It was very terrifying, added the Tao race's elder. An old woman from damning Pure Land immediately became anxious. She quickly reminded Chu Feng to be careful and not fall for it. Monkey, send him on his way. The little Saint Luo Yong spoke in secret with a cold expression. He didn't even need to make a move himself. He was going to use a rarely seen yin-yang monkey to kill Chu Feng. In the next moment, that stone monkey suddenly opened its mouth and let out a mournful howl. It didn't look big and was only the size of a palm, but when it cried out, it was intimidating to the soul. It was even more frightening than an evil spirit from hell. The howl made many evolvers' scalps go numb. The most important thing was that after the stone monkey screamed, countless ripples and runes rushed out from its mouth. They all rushed towards Chu Feng and didn't target the people in the distance. Everyone was shocked. They had only heard the sound and hadn't been attacked by the runes, but their souls were already trembling. Many people were already bleeding from their 7 apertures. They couldn't stand steadily and fell to the ground. One could imagine what the great demon King Chu Feng had experienced at the center of the battlefield. Boom! Chu Feng activated a domain in passing and soared high into the sky to protect his surroundings. However, when that stone monkey's sound waves and runes attacked him, they actually tore apart the domain and strangled him. Of course, the sound waves and runes were greatly weakened. Swoosh! In a split second, Chu Feng activated the world's rare materials and developed a type of divine technique of his own. The light of yin and yang blossomed and poured forward in torrents. This could be considered a type of killer technique he had learned from Ingzhixian. It was part of the wonderful 7 treasures technique and had been cultivated in the foreign realm. Bang! A violent collision and a great explosion resounded through the sky. Space distorted as if it was collapsing. It shocked the surroundings and also shocked those watching this battle from all over the universe. After this attack, Chu Feng's expression became solemn. Even a palm-sized stone monkey was so powerful. He felt that he had underestimated his peers in the past. The Outerverse minor saints were astonishing and an extremely terrifying enemy. After a cry, the stone monkey became dispirited and listless. Even the radiance in its eyes dimmed as it shrunk into a ball and no longer moved. This monkey is still too young and can't handle a protracted battle. Otherwise, a single monkey would be enough to kill you. The minor saint from the chaotic universe, Luo Yong, said coldly, full of arrogance and contempt. At the same time, he was also very ruthless. 2 of his cousins had died in front of him, but his emotions didn't fluctuate greatly. On the contrary, he was still as cold as ever. This was a very terrifying person. Chapter 876. There was a typo in the previous chapter. It should have been corrected by Chu Feng when he killed Luo Shang. Chu Feng's expression was very cold. Golden runes appeared in his eyes as he stared coldly at Luo Shang. He also walked through the void and pressed forward. He could naturally feel that this person was far stronger than his previous opponents. Today, while he was angry, his bloodthirst for battle was also surging. Recently, he had crushed all his opponents along the way and rarely met someone of the same generation who could fight with him. Now was the perfect opportunity. A minor saint of the chaotic universe, the strongest expert of a race. I'm looking forward to it. Chu Feng's aura was rising sharply. He wanted to know how terrifying the top young experts of the outerverse were by measuring the minor saints of the other universe. He had some thoughts in his mind. He had to leave the underworld universe and go to the Yang realm. Naturally, he wanted to know the level of the top young experts of the other universes. Therefore, he didn't use his domain immediately. Some opponents and people had to be experienced and truly understood. At this moment, Chu Feng was the same as Luo Yong. His body was covered in runes and his energy was rising rapidly. The two were getting closer and closer to each other. They were less than 100 meters above the sky. For such people, such a short distance was no different from standing within a few feet of them. Boom! Finally, the two of them erupted with power, rushing together and attacking with all their might. Luo Yong immediately unleashed a heavenly deity palm. His golden palm and fingers were as large as a dustpan. This was his physical body, not formed from energy. It simply wanted to shatter the world. Damn! Nearby, even Ouyang Feng was astonished. The blood energy of this so-called minor saint was too powerful. He could feel the unique, oppressive aura of a quasi-saint. The others were even more terrified. Many of the guests retreated again and again, but now they were still pushed back by the monstrous blood energy. Some people even fell down. Chu Feng used the Virokana fist and the thunderous breathing technique. This fist technique and breathing technique were too compatible. They were originally from the same source. His whole body was glowing like a young god. His state had already erupted to the extreme as he collided with the opponent's deity palm. Bang, bang, bang! In that instant, the two of them were entangled like two bolts of lightning. They were unbelievably fast, as if they were going to explode the void. The air had long since exploded, and white streams of air surged violently like immortal mist. The high-speed energy flow swept through the surroundings. Some of the mountains below directly trembled, cracked, and even exploded. Were it not for the powerful domain buried within the mountain, even the spirit mountain would have exploded. Even so, the mountain peak was still damaged. It was clear how intense the battle was. The two of them were like two golden bolts of lightning, moving quickly in midair and entangling with each other, bursting with killing intent. They continuously collided, exploding with dazzling balls of light again and again, like nuclear explosions. Whoosh! Chu Feng and little Saint Luo Yong were both sent flying. Both of their gazes were extremely resplendent as they stared at each other coldly. Both of them could feel that their opponent was extraordinary. However, people were keenly aware that Chu Feng's hands were bleeding. The web between his thumb and forefinger was split open. In addition, the flesh between his fingers was also cracked, and blood was flowing out. Comparatively speaking, little Saint Luo Yong's hands were much better. They weren't bleeding and were as warm as jade. At this moment, Damring Pure Land was silent. The guests from all directions were silent. They were extremely shocked. Even the elders of the Tao race, Corpse race, and Buddhist race were moved and incomparably shocked. That was because, in everyone's impression, Chu Feng was invincible. Now, apart from Wu Luanhui, he could practically suppress everyone in the same generation. But now there was actually someone who could match him and even slightly occupied the upper hand. The web between Chu Feng's thumb and forefinger was torn and his hands were dripping with blood. How powerful and terrifying was this energy? Everyone in every corner of the universe was momentarily speechless. There was also a time when the great demon Chu Feng was at a disadvantage. From the moment he came into being until now, he had always been suppressing the saints and goddesses of various races. Today, he might actually capsize. Quasi-saint's physical body. Chu Feng stared at him with a somewhat solemn heart. This seemingly ordinary youth's physical body was too tough. His fiery eyes saw clearly that the other party's physical body contained boundless vitality. Even if it couldn't be considered a genuine quasi-saint's physical body, it wasn't far from it. How did he manage to cultivate this? This made him very astonished. One had to know that the other party was still very young, yet he had already reached this step. His physical body was about to become a quasi-saint? You're very strong. Your soul light is condensed like a divine rainbow. It's not something an ordinary person can cultivate, but your physical body is too inferior. It's not in harmony with your soul light. Even though you're not bad, you're still not enough for me to kill, Luo Yong commented indifferently. With one hand behind his back, he walked forward. After that, he swung his other hand with a bang. It was even more tyrannical and fierce than before. That hand transformed into the size of a millstone. Its entire body was golden and inscribed with runes, as if it was cast from gold. It emitted an energy that made people's hearts palpitate. The quasi-saint's aura became even more intense. It was as if a quasi-saint was using his physical body to suppress the enemies in all directions. In reality, if it were an ordinary person, they wouldn't be able to bear it long ago. Once the quasi-saint's aura leaked out, those who weren't at the same level would immediately tremble and go limp on the ground. With the word saint on it, it would be completely different. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. Fortunately, Chu Feng was also sufficiently powerful. His soul light had already walked to the end of the golden body and slightly touched the quasi-saint domain. That was why he had such powerful battle prowess and could contend against Luo Yong here. Otherwise, he really wouldn't be able to withstand it. If he didn't use the domain, no golden body level powerhouse could withstand the terrifying blood chi impact of a quasi-saint's physical body. At this moment, heaven and earth rumbled. When that millstone-sized golden palm smashed down, the void rumbled and runes manifested, enveloping Chu Feng's entire body beneath it. Chu Feng didn't have a choice. He directly used the light of yin and yang and unleashed a divine technique that was comparable to the great divine ability that could break through everything like the five-colored divine light. Otherwise, he would indeed suffer a great loss if he were to fight this person with his physical body. He had once entered the foreign realm and cultivated his soul light to the highest profound realm of the golden body level, but his physical body was left in the yin realm universe. Even if he had the baptism of divine liquid drops after he returned, he still lacked precipitation in the end. There were flaws and it still wasn't perfect enough. This was Chu Feng's current flaw. He needed a certain amount of time to continue tempering it. Otherwise, if his physical body was truly as powerful as his soul light, he would have long charged into the quasi-saint realm. Buzz. In the void, the light of yin and yang circulated and twined with black and white qi. The divine light startled the sky, greatly shocking everyone and making them shudder with fear and trepidation. Following a rumble, there was an intense explosion in the void. The two of them separated once again. The light of yin and yang blocked the other party's deity palm, and they were evenly matched this time. Cousin, don't play like a cat and mouse anymore. Hurry up and kill him. You're the small saint of our universe. Why do you need to temper yourself in this tiny yin realm universe? Just kill him directly. Who can compete with you here? Even in the chaotic universe, there were only 9 people who obtained the title of small saint. They were all the strongest experts of their respective clans in this generation. One of them could crush a group of experts at the same realm as themselves. It was enough to sweep through everything, and it was difficult to find a match for them in the same generation. Of course, the premise was that the 9 small saints didn't encounter each other and a great battle didn't break out between the 9 of them. He Chu Feng, Demon Chu, do you think you're worthy of being called a demon? Do you think you're worthy of being called a divine king? What a joke. You'll only feel how insignificant you are once you go to the outerverse. Another person said with hatred on the shore of the lake. 2 of his cousins had died, so he was incomparably resentful. However, he made Chu Feng extremely disgusted and loathed him. Cousin, try to blow him up with 1 punch and enter the bridal room earlier. Haha, Chu Feng, you still don't know, right? You won't have the chance to be the groom anymore. My cousin will replace you today. You'd better roll on the ground and submit. Just wait to be killed. Haha. As soon as these words were spoken, the scene was in an uproar. Then, a cacophony of noise erupted into the sky. In the cosmos, all the clans were shocked. These people were too bold. They had come to the wedding scene and kidnapped the bride? No wonder the demon King Chu Feng was so furious. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't be able to stand it. They would definitely fight to the death with the other party. The group of old monsters from damning Pure Land were both shocked and furious. At first, they didn't want to speak. After all, it was better to speak less about such matters. The more they described, the worse it would be. But now, they couldn't restrain themselves. At the same time, they were also rejoicing that Chu Feng had rescued Qin Luoyin in advance. In a while, they would invite the Saintess to ruthlessly slap the other party's face. At this moment, the cosmos was also about to explode. Many cultivators were shocked and clamoring. All of you deserve to die. Chu Feng said coldly. You're the one who deserves to die. You killed my cousin. Your crime is unforgivable. Luo Yong laughed coldly. He crossed 5 kilometers with a single step and arrived in front of Chu Feng in the blink of an eye. He raised his fist and smashed out. Torrential energy shook the surroundings and made all the evolvers tremble. Everyone realized that Chu Feng had enemies. This person was too terrifying. His strength was universally shocking. I killed your cousin in an upright manner. Not only that, but I'll also kill them in front of you and then you. Chu Feng said coldly. That was because he was extremely disgusted with the 3 people by the lake. Their words were too excessive. After seeing that all the guests had retreated far enough, Chu Feng decisively activated a domain by the lake. He attacked his cousins while clashing fiercely with Luo Yong. Not good. Beside the lake, a person cried out in horror. It was Luo Yong's younger cousin. He was enveloped by a spiritual furnace formed from runes and was struggling with all his might. However, Chu Feng shouted from the sky, "Kill!" In the end, he turned into a bloody mist with a bang and exploded in the furnace. Ah! Another person also cried out loudly. He was sucked into a cauldron formed from domain runes and was useless no matter how he struggled. With a bang, he also disintegrated and blood splattered in all directions. You dare! Luo Yong was furious not because his cousin had died miserably. He was a heartless and callous person, but because they had died in front of him. This made him lose all face and he was deeply furious. Boom! He suddenly tossed out a large flag which flew out in an instant and stabbed into the lakeside. It was the divine magnetic flag. It stabilized the ground and finally saved his last cousin. How about it? I killed your cousin in front of you, Chu Feng said coldly. It was obvious that he was giving tit for tat. Weren't they competing in fierceness and arrogance? Who was afraid of who? At the same time, Qin Luoyin walked over. She was graceful and charming, but her beautiful face was full of killing intent as she looked at the outer realm Luo family with hatred. The people were in an uproar. Qin Luoyin hadn't been captured? Everyone who saw this scene in every part of the universe heaved a sigh of relief. Qin Luoyin's fans were relieved. The people from the primal chaotic deity palace are very shameless. At this moment, The old monsters of damning Pure Land erupted and revealed that the Luo family had despicably killed people at the wedding. They didn't even let the maids off and wanted to snatch the bride away. This naturally caused a huge commotion. Many guests were immediately disgusted and loathed the people from the primal chaotic deity palace. They felt that they were very despicable and malicious. Truly shameless. Their thoughts are sinister and they want to replace the groom to carry out humiliation. Too malicious. Many people cursed. Countless people cursed in every part of the universe. They felt that these people were too shameless and vicious and deserved to be executed. Impossible. Where are my cousins? On the shore of the lake, the person whose life was saved by the flag was shocked and angry as he shouted, "Where are my 3 cousins?" In the sky, Luo Yong's expression was ice-cold. "I slaughtered them all. Not a single one is left," Chu Feng said calmly and added, "Too weak." Chapter 877. He killed all of them? He said it as if it was as simple as slaughtering a dog or a duck. The scene was dead silent as everyone was shocked. Countless people were watching the live broadcast from all over the universe. They were originally cursing the primal chaotic deity palace for being despicable and shameless, but now they were in a daze. In people's eyes, Chu Feng was still that great demon. He acted decisively, spoke his mind, and lived to his heart's content. The little Saint Luo Yong's expression was chilly. His heart thumped when he saw Qin Luoyin appear. He knew that his 3 cousins who went to the backyard to kidnap the bride had naturally failed. However, he didn't expect Chu Feng to reply so readily. The 3 of them were killed by him, and not a single one was spared. This was slapping his face in public. He was more tyrannical and decisive than him. He spoke as if it was as simple as killing a few chicks. He was rather casual and didn't treat it as a big deal. "You're courting death." Luo Yong's expression was as gloomy as water, and there was a cold glint in the depths of his eyes. He stood high up in the sky and looked down at Chu Feng. His golden hair spread out and blossomed with a dazzling brilliance. He was like a burning sun that illuminated half the firmament, and his energy aura was world-shaking. "Your 3 cousins are all dead. You're so ruthless." Beside the lake, the deity race core disciple who was sheltered by the divine magnetic flag was incomparably resentful. He was shocked and furious at the same time, and his emotions fluctuated violently. He was the only one left here. The others had been killed by Chu Feng in front of him. Noisy. At the same time, you guys are very disgusting. You came with evil intentions, and now you're actually blaming me. Have you gotten used to bossing people around? You can't suffer grievances and you can't suffer losses. Today, even if you're a dragon, you'll have to bow down to me, not to mention that you're originally a mule. Chu Feng was fearless as he strode forward. He didn't even look at the core disciple beside the lake. He kept staring at Luo Yong. This was the truly terrifying enemy. There was nothing more to say now. He could only suppress this so-called little saint and kill him. Boom! Chu Feng erupted with an astonishing aura of energy. It was as if he had walked out from the raging flames, bathing in the flames of energy that overflowed the heavens. Scarlet phoenix feathers appeared around him one after another, as if they were forged from divine order gold. They clanked and emitted an intimidating luster. This was the phoenix breathing technique that was most suitable for adjusting one's own state. Any minute injuries within the body would be repaired. Now, regardless of whether it was his corporeal body or soul light, both of them had climbed to their strongest state. The entire sky was filled with flames, causing many evolvers in damning Pure Land to tremble. They finally knew how terrifying Chu Feng was. At this moment, the little Saint Luo Yong's gloomy expression vanished, and he became calm once more. He didn't care about the deaths of so many of his cousins. His heart was cold, merciless, and callous. Chu Feng, in my eyes, not to mention you, even the strongest geniuses of your realm cosmos added together are nothing. They're all dregs," Luo Yong announced with an indifferent expression. Once these words were spoken, it really caused a monstrous uproar. People felt that he was too arrogant, causing many geniuses from various races to sneer and view him with incomparable hostility. Everywhere in the universe, the people who were watching the live broadcast cursed even more, and it was an uproar. "Come, I'll cover the sky with one hand. I'll kill those who don't accept it," Luo Yong said coldly. He walked over with one hand behind his back. He raised one hand and emitted a glaring radiance. He used one hand to fight Chu Feng. "Insolent people die faster," Chu Feng said coldly. "We'll talk again if you can block one of my hands. If you can't block one of my hands, you're not worthy to be my opponent," Luo Yong said. Without a doubt, he was using his strongest power now. He wanted to kill Chu Feng with one hand in front of everyone and demonstrate the powerful might of a little saint. Motherf *Ker, does this grandson think he's the main character of this era? He's too arrogant. He wants to suppress Chu Feng with one hand. *CK. Ouyang Feng couldn't help but curse. "You'll die faster if you pretend to be 13. Yellow Cattle couldn't help but shout from below. Bang! The two people in the sky attacked. Little Saint Luo Yong took a step forward with one hand behind his back. He retreated several kilometers and directly arrived in front of Chu Feng. He attacked with one hand, arrogant and conceited. His long golden hair danced in the wind and energy surged. It was extremely swift and fierce. A glaring light erupted in the sky. Chu Feng was like a crimson immortal bird. The feathers all over his body made a clanging sound as they pierced through the void. He was incomparably resplendent. This was a life and death battle. Chu Feng was also fighting with true anger. He hoped to kill this person in a head-on confrontation because he felt that the people of the chaotic universe were too insolent. Bang, bang, bang. After dozens of collisions, Luo Yong actually only had one hand and kept attacking with the other hand behind his back. Everyone was moved. Although they didn't like him, he was really abnormally powerful. The blood chi and corporeal body of a quasi-sage was a nightmare to any golden arhat. There was simply no way to deal with him. Not to mention the younger generation, even a group of old monsters were secretly wiping their cold sweat. If they were to go up, they reckoned that Luo Yong's quasi-sage corporeal body would have long since exploded. They wouldn't be able to withstand more than a few moves. If it wasn't for Chu Feng's sufficiently world-shocking soul light that almost touched the quasi-sage domain, he really wouldn't be able to block the other party's quasi-sage blood chi. It was too terrifying. That powerful corporeal body, and the boundless blood chi that overflowed was enough to ignite the soul light of other golden arhat powerhouses and burn them into ashes. Using the corporeal body's blood chi to restrain the soul light and crush everything. This was the terrifying path of becoming a saint through the corporeal body. Once he advanced, few saints in the world could match him. The web between Chu Feng's thumb and forefinger tore again, and blood flowed out. Oh, the freak corporeal body cultivated with deity blood is indeed powerful. But what surprised me is that there's also such an extraordinary young expert in the realm cosmos, who blocked Luo Yong. Someone was whispering in the distance. This person's complexion was as lustrous as jade, and he was extremely handsome. He also came from the chaotic universe and was another little saint. Other people didn't know, but those who came from the same universe understood best. They all knew how extravagant the deity race was in nurturing their successors. They would use the race's true deity blood to refine the corporeal body. At this moment, Luo Yong was also deeply surprised. Chu Feng actually blocked him and fought for close to 100 rounds. He nodded and said, "You're quite impressive to be able to block one of my palms. You can be my opponent. Then let's have another hand. I'll see how many moves you can withstand." He originally had one hand behind his back, but now he also placed it in front of his body. There was a sneer on his face, and he still had the attitude of being the most supreme. His confidence was too strong. "Cousin, just use the deity striking whip and finish him off in one strike. What's the point of wasting energy?" that person shouted at Luo Yong from the lakeside. He was afraid that an accident would happen. Luo Yong was cold and conceited as he said, "Shut up. I think he's a bit interesting. He has some ancient breathing techniques on him that are worth me studying." As he spoke, his aura flourished even more as he closed in on Chu Feng. It could be seen that this person was truly callous and emotionless. Now, his attitude was very open and incomparably confident. He wasn't in a bad mood just because his cousins had died. Chu Feng sneered and said, "You speak as if you can kill me just by using the so-called deity striking whip. If I didn't want to weigh up the strength of the young overlords of the primal chaos universe and understand the situation in the outerverse, I wouldn't even bother to tangle with you like this." He had domain techniques, and now that the spectators had retreated far enough, he could activate the runes in the mountains and rivers so as to not accidentally injure the people in the surroundings. But just as he said, although he was furious, he also wanted to see the strength of the evolvers from the other universes. In this battle, Chu Feng had experienced his own shortcomings. He had switched to this path halfway and hadn't stepped onto it since he was young. As expected, there were some areas that weren't perfect enough. According to the notes given to him by the yellow-furred fox, he should be stronger if he was nurtured from a young age. For a split second, Chu Feng wavered. He really wanted to reincarnate and return to the Yang realm. He wanted to start over from the beginning and cultivate every evolutionary realm to the most perfect state. He wanted to follow the steps written in the Yang realm's almighty letter to cultivate the strongest descendant. Boom! The battle continued. All in all, the strength of the primal chaos universe exceeded Chu Feng's imagination. It even surpassed those from the foreign realm. However, he understood after some thought. This was because the primal chaos universe definitely had the strong points of both sides. They had a powerful breathing technique and were proficient in the arts of the foreign realm. Chu Feng had long since known that there were gods in the primal chaos universe. The most powerful races all had people who had inherited their divine positions. Where did those divine positions come from? From the foreign realm. Moreover, the gods who could come out from the foreign realm and cross the primal chaos sea were definitely the most terrifying. One could imagine the number of divine positions they had left behind in the primal chaos universe. Once inherited, they would definitely be able to create a supreme god. Such clans had terrifying foundations, such as the primal chaotic deity palace, the banished immortal cave, the Amitabha temple, and the myriad deity palace. "I'm going to kill you. Are you ready?" Luo Yong smiled faintly and became more and more confident. If one looked closely, they would discover that there was a golden blood chi whirlwind surging outside his body. He was increasing his strength and his physical body became increasingly dazzling. It was as if there were runes engraved on it and it gradually became resplendent. He was accumulating energy a step further. He wanted to crush Chu Feng with his physical body that was comparable to a quasi-saint and then kill him. That was because he didn't want to delay any longer. Kill. The battle became more and more intense. Luo Yong suddenly waved his palm and his entire person was like a prehistoric ferocious beast coming out of its cage. It was as if he had charged out of the primal chaos and appeared in the mortal world. He was going to start a massacre and wash the world with blood. Bang bang bang. In the intense battle, Chu Feng discovered that the flaws in his physical body had indeed caused him to suffer a great loss. As long as they collided, blood would gush out from the webbing between his thumb and forefinger. Both his arms were in intense pain and might break. His soul light had been cultivated to the limits of the golden body, but his physical body hadn't caught up yet. It was somewhat lacking. In the past, he often charged around savagely and suppressed others, but now, he was suffering a great loss. If you only have these tricks and want to restrain me with your soul light, then you can go and die. My physical body is unparalleled and can suppress all soul techniques, Luo Yong said in a deep voice. Even though he was very hateful and his actions this time were incomparably vicious, his strength was indeed ridiculously powerful. He was one of the 9 strongest minor saints in the primal chaos universe. Many people in Damring Pure Land looked worried. Many people sincerely hoped that Chu Feng could win and destroy the domineering confidence of this minor saint from the outerverse. They wanted to smash his invincible halo. However, people saw that Chu Feng was bleeding. The webbing between his thumb and forefinger had been ruptured by the powerful deity palm. His hands were full of mottled wounds and blood, and even his arms were trembling slightly. People realized that things weren't looking good and felt that Chu Feng was in danger. In particular, Yellow Cattle, Ouyang Feng, and the Manchurian Tiger had unsightly expressions on their faces. Chu Feng was actually going to be defeated? Young lady, she didn't say a word. She held the heavenly umbrella and constantly waited here, ready to blast it at any time. Qin Luoyin's heart palpitated. This was the first time she discovered that the invincible Chu Feng might actually encounter danger. She revealed a worried expression and was very worried. It can't be right? Is Chu Feng going to be defeated? This has never happened before. Are the people from the outer verse actually so terrifying? The people watching the live broadcast in various parts of the universe were shocked. All kinds of clamorous voices rang out and couldn't calm down. Luo Yong was incomparably tyrannical, as if he was possessed by a god. Beams of light overflowed the sky as he attacked forward with a faint smile. Chu Feng, your cultivation at every stage has flaws and can't be considered perfect. However, you're actually able to fight with me for such a long time. It's not bad. You can go on your way. Chu Feng's arms trembled. His fingers were full of blood, and the webbing between his thumb and forefinger had been torn beyond recognition. Even the bones of his fingers were exposed. One could see that there was a faint blue light in the dark red blood. It was very gentle, sparkling, and translucent. Chu Feng sighed and said, I lacked the corresponding period of time to temper and didn't upgrade my body to its peak. This is the biggest flaw of this battle. He was concluding, but he wasn't depressed or discouraged. He said, You used the deity's blood to refine a powerful body, and I used my own blood to upgrade it. Who would have thought that the first time it was activated in battle would be in a battle with you? You can die in peace. Boom. The next moment, everyone felt a glaring light. Chu Feng's body was surrounded by azure radiance. The blood flowing out of his body was flowing in reverse and returning to his body. Those with sharp eyes were astonished to find that the color of his blood seemed to have changed. It was turning azure. A minor saint from the Myriad Deity Palace, who was watching the battle, immediately shot out an astonishing divine radiance. He muttered to himself in astonishment, Elementary human monarch's blood. Rumble. The heaven and earth seemed to be collapsing. Chu Feng's blood and qi surged and spread out. His body suddenly became crystal clear. He was completely different after activating the human monarch's blood. You want to kill me? He shouted. Boom. As Chu Feng shouted, he rushed forward and raised his fist to attack. An invisible domain was created, suppressing all directions. Bang! Luo Yong waved his golden fist and collided with Chu Feng. He was shocked and his pupils constricted because he felt a sharp pain in his fist. It was as if he had been smashed by a mother of gold. Walking the path of becoming a saint? Trying to bully me because my body is flawed? Then let's try again and see who is the dregs. Boom. As Chu Feng shouted, his dark red blood and qi exuded azure brilliance and shot up to the sky. He was like a great demonic god. His long black hair was dyed with a layer of dazzling azure brilliance. This punch seemed to carry the power to suppress the world as it swung out domineeringly and fiercely. Luo Yong's arm trembled and the web between his thumb and forefinger was bleeding. It had already been torn apart. He was incomparably horrified that his opponent's body had actually become so tenacious and terrifying. The two fought fiercely. Luo Yong was shaken because he realized what kind of opponent he had encountered. This was the human monarch's body, which was once known to be able to suppress all races. At the same time, he was also rejoicing that it was only the first stage of blue blood. The color of his blood hadn't changed again. I really don't want to suppress you like this, but I have to admit that my body is still a bit flawed and needs to be polished. So, go to hell. Chu Feng went berserk. Whether it was damning Pure Land or other places in the cosmos, everyone was stunned because the current Chu Feng was too terrifying. He was surrounded by blue lightning and emitted the aura of a quasi-saint with every movement. His body had entered the quasi-saint domain. People were astonished and doubtful. Bang, bang, bang. In just this short period of time, Chu Feng and the small Saint Luo Yong had collided dozens of times. It was no longer Chu Feng's web between his thumb and forefinger that was split open, but Luo Yong's arms were spasming and his body was covered in blood as he was sent flying. The human monarch's bloodline has come into being. I have to get rid of him, or else I'll be in big trouble. Luo Yong's heart trembled. Taking advantage of this moment to eliminate him was the best opportunity. However, he was disappointed. He had just become a little ruthless when Chu Feng's fist smashed through his golden protective light screen and struck his face. His mouth was full of blood, his brain was buzzing, and his head was almost split into pieces. Bang! Chapter 878. Luo Yong's back was punched and his chest swelled up. A fist mark appeared and was almost pierced through. Even so, his back was splattered with blood as he dived out like a comet. This was an unfathomable power. His physical body was comparable to a quasi-saint, but he still suffered such a great loss. His internal organs were burning and energy flames were pulsating. Needless to say, an evolver at the Golden Arhat realm would definitely explode under this punch. Even Luo Yong's physical body, which was comparable to a quasi-saint's, couldn't withstand it. Crack! He smashed through a mountaintop, but of course it was only limited to the mountaintop. There were profound magnets in the deeper layers of soil which were protected by a domain. The reversal of the battle situation moved everyone. Astonishment was written all over everyone's faces. Chu Feng had actually reversed the situation and gained the upper hand. Luo Yong stood on the fragmented mountaintop with glaring multicolored light surging around his body like an active volcano spewing golden magma. He was also like an inextinguishable divine furnace burning with incomparably vigorous energy. His aura rose sharply as he used the deity breathing technique to recover his injured body. He stared at Chu Feng like a hungry wolf. The person he had suppressed had actually injured him. What shocked him the most was that this was the humanoid monarch physique. Back then, there were only a few humanoid monarchs, yet they were able to suppress every race in the universe until they couldn't raise their head. He would never forget that legend. Those people had killed their way into the primal chaos universe from the Yin realm back then. It was too terrifying. Chu Feng, you scum in my eyes. You actually have this kind of potential to activate this kind of bloodline. But even so, you must die. Luo Yong had a sinister expression. His ordinary appearance no longer had a transcendent temperament but was instead filled with killing intent. Then, golden patterns soared up on the surface of his body like a metal man. All kinds of dazzling symbols were carved on it. At the same time, that kind of aura made everyone uncomfortable. It carried with it a fluctuation that made people's souls tremble as it swept out in all directions like a tide. This is the deity void-splitting fist. He has mastered it. In the distance, a minor saint from the chaotic universe was astonished. This was a type of divine technique. It was extremely powerful, but it was very difficult to master. Even though it was difficult to master, its power was also incomparably great. Chu Feng was very quiet as he silently sensed the changes in his body. The flaws in his physical body had actually been compensated for by activating a portion of his blue blood. His toughness was comparable to that of a secondary saint. It was precisely because of this that he no longer had any misgivings, and he no longer feared clashing with Luo Yong. Boom! Chu Feng began to attack, and took the initiative to launch an attack. He swooped down from the sky, and his whole body was covered in scarlet light. He was circulating the phoenix race's breathing technique, and one tail feather after another clanked like red divine chains of order. They bloomed around him and shot out violently. At the same time, his fist became red, as if it was going to refine the void. Lightning erupted, and he controlled the lightning, his speed surpassing common sense. While the lightning fist was domineering, it also surpassed all other fist techniques in terms of speed. Rumble! The minor saint, Luo Yong, rose from the ground and leaped high into the sky. He struck out with the deity race's void-splitting fist. His whole body shone, and his fist was the most resplendent. It could even be said that his fist was too glaring. It was even more frightening than the collapsing stars in the universe. Golden energy surged, and cracks appeared in the void around his fist. This scene stunned the evolvers of every race. The might of a single fist can actually be like this. In the Pure Land, there were old monsters who were horrified. If they were to take this punch, they wouldn't even need to think about it. Even if they had reached the peak of the Golden Body Realm, they would still be blown up without any suspense. Buzz. It was as if there was a nuclear explosion taking place in the world. The red fist imprint, along with the vibrating sound of the phoenix race's tail feathers, collided with the golden fist. The cracks in the void were very frightening, and they wanted to swallow the red fist and strangle everything. It had to be said that Luo Yong, the strongest genius of the primal chaotic deity palace and one of the 9 minor saints of the Outerverse, was too frightening. At this moment even Chu Feng was moved. He felt that his fist was very painful. What was frightening wasn't the other party's golden fist, but the numerous cracks around the fist imprint. It carried a part of the spatial strangle power and destroyed all kinds of matter, including the bodies of evolvers. Crack! Chu Feng activated the phoenix race's breathing technique. Lightning burst forth from his red fist, and in an instant hundreds and thousands of lightning bolts exploded in the void and collided with the other party's golden fist. At the same time, the phoenix race's tail feathers around him emitted the sound of swaying chains of order. All of them rushed over and collided with the cracks around the golden fist. Whoosh whoosh! In the end, amidst the violent explosion and the energy flames that burned half the sky, the two of them flew out rapidly. Chu Feng lowered his head and saw that there were some bloodstains on his fist, but they weren't very deep. Light blue blood mixed with bright red blood flowed out. The air-splitting fist could borrow the power of space to strangle one's opponent. It was a secret technique of the primal chaotic deity palace, and it was indeed world-shocking. On the other side, Luo Yong's hands were trembling. His skin and flesh were lacerated, and there were charred wounds on them. At the same time, blood was dripping out as he was severely injured by Chu Feng's lightning fist. He was furious that he had actually fallen into a disadvantageous position once again. What made him especially indignant was that he was actually at a disadvantage in his most powerful physical domain. He was walking on the path of becoming a saint with his physical body, and he wanted to become the most powerful saint. In the end, he was injured by the human monarch physique's physical body, which made him feel a sense of defeat. Clang! Luo Yong moved again. His hands gripped the air as if he was drawing out a blade. At the same time, a giant golden blade really appeared beside him. It was formed by energy and was the race's world-shocking secret technique. This blade was 3 kilometers long. Luo Yong was originally high up in the sky, and when he used the heavenly blade technique, the giant blade instantly soared into the clouds. A sharp murderous aura erupted and engulfed the entire sky and the earth. Boom! When this blade slashed forward, it didn't seem like a blade was slashing down. Instead, it was like a golden mountain smashing down. Energy clouds surged, accompanied by the deafening sound of a mountain torrent erupting. The space between Chu Feng's brows shone as he directly activated the worldly rare substance condensed from soul light. He displayed the qi of yin and yang, and it was as if an immortal light had appeared to sweep this supreme blade to the side. At the same time, his fist intent changed again. The thunderous breathing technique surged within his body as he used the Vairocana fist and blasted forward. The light of yin and yang shook off the long blade, which could be considered as opening up a path for him. Meanwhile, he himself swooped forward at a speed that was suffocating. His golden fist smashed down. Luo Yong roared in anger as he fiercely resisted. The two of them trembled like 2 bolts of lightning moving, but also like 2 gods fighting each other, scattering the clouds in the sky. Luo Yong was sent flying. He had been seriously injured, and his mouth was full of bloody foam. His hands were bleeding profusely, and his arms were spasming. When he looked back, his eyes were filled with coldness and anger. He was one of the Outerverse's 9 minor saints, but he had actually been seriously injured by someone. The most powerful deity, blood awakening, suppress everything. Luo Yong roared. He was truly furious. He had originally thought that he could sweep away all the so-called geniuses when he came to the underworld cosmos. In his eyes, these people were all clay chickens and pottery dogs. In the end, they were restrained by someone today, and he was constantly injured. Buzz. An expanse of golden light appeared around him. It was very gentle and thin like water ripples, carrying with it an indescribable fluctuation. He charged directly at Chu Feng. Wherever the golden light passed, all energy was suppressed, causing Chu Feng to tremble. When he raised his fist to attack, he discovered that his own energy had decreased sharply. A deity has descended into the mortal world. All living beings are mortals in front of my race. Luo Yong roared. His face was full of madness, and his eyes were blazing. He wanted to kill Chu Feng with this strike. Chu Feng realized what kind of situation he had encountered. He seemed to have been suppressed. His own cultivation had decreased sharply, and it was as if he was about to become a mortal. This was fairly terrifying and dangerous. It was the same as stretching out his neck to be chopped off. Chu Feng knew that this was a type of domain application. Normally, it would appear in the saint realm. Only a few geniuses could operate this kind of ability in advance. They surpassed their peers by too much, and they could fight one against many indiscriminately. This kind of ability could be called the saint domain. Boom. At this moment, Chu Feng used his spirit as paint and his blood and qi as paper to erupt with his own painting scroll. This was because he had comprehended something special in the past. So much so that when he used his spiritual body to fight the deity race's saint on the Kunlun heavenly vine back then, he had used this opportunity to touch upon the domain application in advance. Now that he had erupted, great stars appeared one after the other, imprisoning the void. It was as if this place had turned into a land of silence. At the same time, Chu Feng was still carving domain runes on the stars one after the other, deepening the confinement. Buzz. Finally, he once again experienced that feeling. After becoming powerful enough, the initial appearance of the Saint Domain, coupled with the addition of the domain, erupted with incomparable power. Ah! Luo Yong roared. His heart was restless and exceptionally restless. He had used his race's forbidden secret technique in conjunction with his own cultivation to display the terrifying Saint Domain. In the end, he hadn't turned the other party into a mortal. Instead, the other party was able to use such a demonic method to counter him? The other party had also used the Saint domain. This shocked Luo Yong and at the same time made him feel fear. That was because his physical body was imprisoned, and it was extremely difficult for him to move. Boom! Chu Feng swooped down and immediately unleashed a beam of yin and yang light. This could be considered a trump card. With a puff, Luo Yong was almost cut in half amidst the splatter of blood. Luo Yong broke free from the confinement at the most critical moment. However, he still lost an arm and was in a miserable state. Bang! At the same time, Chu Feng's fist had also arrived. It was a combination of the lightning fist and the Virokana fist. It was firm and tyrannical, as swift as lightning, and carried a demonic nature as it smashed down. Roar! Luo Yong bellowed and fought with all his might. However, how could he block it with just one arm? With a bang, he was sent flying, and blood flowed from all 7 of his orifices. Chu Feng attacked once more and blasted down. During the collision, Luo Yong's body was full of cracks. His remaining arm was almost torn off, and blood was gushing out like a fountain. The most terrifying thing was that his right leg was missing. Everything below the knee was gone. It had been severed by Chu Feng's yin and yang light, and he fell from the sky. Cousin! Beside the lake, the surviving core member of the primal chaotic deity palace cried out. He simply couldn't believe his eyes. That was the strongest descendant of their race, and it was difficult to find an opponent even if they moved unhindered throughout the outerverse. He was known as the small saint of this generation in the primal chaotic universe, and only 9 people had this honor. He was high and mighty. But what did he see now? Luo Yong, one of the 9 supreme small saints, was defeated. Moreover, Luo Yong was defeated very miserably. Bang! In an instant, Chu Feng attacked again, and the attack almost caused Luo Yong's body to explode. He was sent flying 800 meters away, and blood spurted from his nose and mouth. Crack! Amidst the eruption of thunder, Chu Feng stomped down from the sky and knocked Luo Yong into a mountain peak. His fist smashed down, and with a bang, a bloody hole the size of a bowl was blasted open in Luo Yong's chest. Even someone as strong as a secondary saint couldn't withstand it. Chi! At the same time, Chu Feng's yin and yang light swept over again. Luo Yong let out a long howl in horror, and his entire body's golden blood chi soared into the heavens. He was furious to the extreme. He had never been in such a sorry state in his life, and now he was actually about to be killed. It was truly a great humiliation. Clang! This time, Chu Feng's yin and yang light couldn't cut him apart because a strange god-striking whip appeared from within Luo Yong's body. Die! Luo Yong roared in anger and felt ashamed. He was defeated in the end and couldn't defeat his opponent. In the end, he actually had to use a great killing weapon that his family had prepared for him to kill his enemy. Chu Feng had already retreated far away in an instant when abnormal fluctuations appeared within Luo Yong's body. Then, he saw a ball of light rush out and fly toward him. Using external objects? Then I'll directly destroy you, shouted Chu Feng. He had exchanged over 600 moves with the little Saint Luo Yong, and now, he was already burning with anger. The killing intent hidden within his heart erupted, and there was no time to waste. He had long since weighed the level of evolution of this generation in the outerverse. Boom! The mountains and rivers shone, and the damning pure land trembled. The god-striking whip that was flying over was bobbing up and down in a ball of light, but now it was inexplicably blasted away. At the same time, Chu Feng let out a long howl. A field of domain runes erupted and converged from the beautiful upper spirit mountains in all directions, drowning Luo Yong within. Luo Yong roared in anger and struggled with all his might, but it was useless. In an instant, his body was torn apart by the domain runes. First, his remaining arm was severed. Next, he was severed from the waist down. Boom! In the end, Chu Feng stood high up in the sky and blasted down with a fist. Luo Yong's body exploded on a mountain peak, and a rain of blood sprinkled down, dyeing the spirit mountains red. Chu Feng had made preparations several days ago, and didn't hesitate to lay down a large-scale saint-slaughtering domain. Now that a portion of it had been detonated, its power was naturally boundless. Without a doubt, this was going to be a huge storm. Chapter 879. Aolo, a mournful cry rang out like the wail of an evil spirit as it charged towards Chu Feng in the sky. It was a glaring rune with a strange energy surging within it. The stone monkey was no bigger than a palm. It was a divine fetus nurtured by heaven and earth, and was called the yin-yang monkey. It was said to be able to see through all fabrications and understand the profundities of life and death after reaching adulthood. During the Origin Beast era, one had appeared and stirred up a bloody storm in the Yin realm universe. It was invincible and many heaven illuminators had died. Not long ago, this stone monkey had attacked Chu Feng once, but Chu Feng had blocked it with the yin-yang light. At that time, Luo Yong had arrogantly said that the monkey was still young and couldn't stand a protracted battle. Otherwise, it would have been enough to kill Chu Feng. Everything changed in the blink of an eye. Luo Yong was blown up, and the yin-yang monkey went crazy and fought Chu Feng with all its might. It was originally a rare treasure and could be considered a divine fetus, but it already recognized its master and still bore a grudge, so I could only kill it, Chu Feng said softly. Then, people saw blue lightning burst out from his body and obliterate all the sound runes. This was the powerful embodiment of the humanoid monarch physique, as it forcefully resisted the yin-yang monkey's attack. Boom! At the same time, Chu Feng's large hand slammed down with the help of a domain to imprison the stone monkey. With a bang, the yin-yang monkey was blasted into pieces, and there was actually blood in its stone body. Oh my, what a pity! Many people cried out in alarm. Even the old monsters of damning Pure Land were gritting their teeth. If they could tame it, they could nurture it into a monster that would give even heaven illuminators a headache. In the end, it was slapped to death by Chu Feng just like that. Huh! Chu Feng was astonished. There was blood and soul light condensing at the collapsed mountain top. Luo Yong, one of the 9 little saints of the Outerverse, was resurrected. Many people cried out in alarm as a badly mutilated person reappeared there. Why bother? It's just a death substitution talisman. Explode a few more times. Chu Feng sneered. Boom. He used a domain technique to suppress Luo Yong and stomped down at the same time. With a boom, Luo Yong was once again smashed into pieces, and even his soul light exploded. Cousin! At the lakeside, the core disciples of the primal chaotic deity Palace cried out loudly. Their hearts went cold and they were incomparably shocked. Was the small saint from their clan going to lose his life completely? Noisy! Chu Feng turned back to look in that direction. In truth, the Black Yak and the others had long since stopped this person from escaping. Despicable people like you still want to ruin my wedding? Chu Feng struck out with a backhand slap. Now that the human king's blood was activated, blue electric radiance curled around his body. Even his hair emitted a faint blue radiance. From far away, a large palm imprint appeared and pressed downwards. Puff! Without any suspense, that person's eyes widened in horror as he was directly blasted to death, turning into a pool of blood. He couldn't be more dead. The saint-slaying domain had long since been activated, so it was useless even if he had the divine magnetic flag in his hand. Ah! Not too far away, on top of a mountain, Luo Yong revived once again. It wasn't that he was looking for trouble, but rather that the death substitution talisman had automatically restored his life force, and he couldn't control it. This clan attached great importance to him, and was afraid that an accident would happen to him. This death substitution talisman could save his life 7 times, and was specially refined to deal with him. Luo Yong, you vicious person. You want to kidnap my wife and humiliate me like this. You're so shameless, and it's enough to see the filth of the primal chaotic deity palace, shouted Chu Feng. This time, his hand shone as he took out the shiny diamond chakram. With a boom, the weakened Luo Yong exploded once again. Not only was damning Pure Land in an uproar, but people from all over the universe couldn't calm down either. Many people applauded and cheered after seeing this scene. Even though Demon King Chu Feng was hated by some races to the point that the roots of their teeth were itching, comparatively speaking, this Luo Yong today was even more despicable. He looked down on the entire Een Realm universe and called the geniuses of all races trash. He was too arrogant. And now, this small saint from the outerverse who thought he was infallible and could look down on the geniuses of all races was repeatedly beaten up by Chu Feng. This made many evolvers applaud and feel great satisfaction. Did you see that? What's called a fancy way to die. This is called dying once isn't satisfying. You have to be beaten to death several times before you're willing to breathe your last. Too despicable. How pitiful. A small saint from the primal chaotic universe came to our starry sky. Is this a demonstration of all kinds of ways to court death? Evolvers from all over the universe were ridiculing him. Just like that, Luo Yong was killed by Chu Feng even after being resurrected 7 times. In the end, his eyes were filled with resentment, humiliation, and extreme unwillingness. When he soared into the sky, he was stomped down by Chu Feng and turned into a bloody mist. His soul light exploded and he died thoroughly. Chu Feng wasn't at ease. He took out the black soul bell and shook it suddenly. Bell waves spread out and strangled all the remnant soul light. Luo Yong couldn't be more dead. There were 2 groups of evolvers in the crowd with extremely grave expressions. They were also from the outerverse and were 2 other small saints. They were surrounded by their followers. Luo Yong was actually beaten up so powerfully in the underworld universe. The fox mourned the death of a rabbit, and it made these 2 people feel a chill run down their spines. But they didn't make a move. Firstly, they didn't have such a deep friendship with Luo Yong. After careful consideration, they were still competitors. Secondly, they really didn't have the confidence to win against Chu Feng. Buzz! When Chu Feng dispersed his domain, a ball of light erupted with a terrifying aura in the void and danced toward Chu Feng. It was a great killing weapon, the deity striking whip. Chu Feng was astonished and once again activated his domain to confine it. After all, this was a large-scale saint-slaughtering domain that was prepared to deal with many saints. Its might was boundless. This weapon was frozen on the spot once again. It had a total of 9 segments and was like a purple lustrous bamboo. Chu Feng used his domain to rapidly refine it. In the end, he held it in his hand and was indescribably astonished. This weapon was truly astonishing. It was a saint weapon and moreover, it had a wisp of innate spirituality. This is a spiritual object that grows at the edge of the sea of primal chaos. It can only be encountered and not sought. It's the purple golden bamboo. An old monster from damning Pure Land cried out in surprise. The sea of primal chaos with lightning was a dangerous place. The purple golden bamboo that grew at the edge naturally couldn't compare to the true innate objects in the primal chaos, but it was still very astonishing. This thing grows 1 segment every 10,000 years. It has a total of 9 segments now, which means that it's at least 90,000 years old. It's a fine product even among saint weapons. The Buddhist race's elder Kuning sighed. At the same time, everyone realized that it was extremely difficult to cross the universe and enter the underworld with such a powerful weapon. The primal chaotic deity palace must have paid a great price. Not a bad saint-level spiritual object. I'll kindly accept it. I just happen to be lacking a weapon. Chu Feng smiled and put it behind his back. In reality, he was trembling in his heart. This great killing weapon was even more terrifying than people imagined. When he activated it just now, it could emit saintly might. This was meticulously refined by the primal chaotic deity Pallas. If it was used properly, this whip could slaughter saints. There was no doubt that this was a rare saint weapon. It was a top-notch weapon in the saint-level domain. At this moment, everyone in the universe was in heated discussion and flared up. Chu Feng had slaughtered a small saint from the outerverse, and his reputation had reached the apex. Countless people on the Black Blood platform and the Origin Beast platform were discussing this. Wait a minute, my heart is a little confused. When Chu Feng was injured, some blue blood flowed out. How did he have a king physique? It's a little strange. Does he have the same physique as Wu Luanhui? Not to mention all over the universe, even many people in damning Pure Land revealed strange expressions. Especially the old monster from the quasi-saint race. He stared at Chu Feng without end and wished he could rush over to check his entire body. Ying Xiaoxiao curled her lips and didn't tell the elders in her race the truth. She was very nervous during the great battle just now, but now she finally revealed a sweet smile and almost shouted out the two words brother-in-law. Ying Wudi was being crowded around and suppressed by the saintesses of the fragrant elephant race, Taotai race, and Ho race. He had a hopeless expression on his face as he watched Chu Feng display his might. He wasn't happy at all. Little friend Chu Feng, what's your relationship with Wu Luanhui? Finally, an elder from the quasi-saint race opened his mouth and asked directly because he couldn't bear it any longer. Wu Luanhui had a king physique and was about to marry the saintess of the quasi-saint race. How did Demon King Chu Feng also have a king physique now? Not to mention them, even the Buddhist race, corpse race, Tao race, demon race, origin demon race, and so on were dumbfounded. The old monsters of each race wanted to see through the truth. Do you still need to ask? Both of them have king physique. Have you forgotten that in the most ancient era, several king physiques appeared in one era to rule the universe and command tens of thousands of races? This is very normal. This kind of physique doesn't appear, but once it does, there are several of them. The old monster from damning Pure Land explained as he wiped his cold sweat. Then, he urged Chu Feng to enter the bridal room. What was the point of fighting and killing on such a joyous day? They were naturally anxious because they were afraid that the quasi-saint race would snatch the marriage. Now, Chu Feng had displayed such astonishing combat strength that far exceeded everyone's expectations. He was comparable to a quasi-saint and could even kill a small saint from the outerverse. How could they let such a son-in-law go? No accidents were allowed. Besides, they had already reached this step, so how could they let him go? Enter the bridal room. Send the newlyweds to rest. A group of old monsters from damning Pure Land personally set out to escort Chu Feng and Qin Luoyin out of the arena. They didn't give anyone a chance to approach them. Everyone pondered and felt that what that old woman said was somewhat reasonable. Back then, several people with king physiques appeared in one era before completely disappearing. However, after Chu Feng truly disappeared, everyone began to be bewildered again. They felt that it was too much of a coincidence that both Chu Feng and Wu Luanhui had king physique. This won't do. Let Chu Feng come out. I want to talk to him, said an elder from the quasi-saint race. What does an old man want to talk to the groom about? What a pervert! Don't tell me you want to imitate Luo Yong and replace Chu Feng? Be careful of being beaten up by Chu Feng, said an old woman from damning Pure Land. What nonsense are you talking about? The quasi-saint race elder was quite angry. In the universe there was a great discussion everywhere. Everyone was talking about the king physique. I dare to guarantee that Wu Luanhui is the great demon King Chu Feng. Oh my god, this is too King shocking. The supremely righteous King Luanhui is actually the great demon King Chu? I have a feeling that these two are one. But in my heart, Wu Luanhui is radiant like the sun. He's hot-blooded, just and kind, and he's known as the supremely righteous king. Today, I feel like his image has collapsed. He's the great demon King Chufeng? Oh my God, the starry sea is going to be shaken. I reckon every race is going to be dumbfounded. Indeed, the outside world was in a mess. Every part of the universe was in an uproar. However, Chufeng didn't know about these things now. He couldn't care about it either, as he was sent into the bridal room by a group of old monsters. A group of people wanted to come to the bridal room, including the old donkey, Ouyang Feng, and the big black yak, let alone the geniuses from every race who were infatuated with Qin Luoyin. In the end, they were all driven away by the old monsters from damning Pure Land. No one could get close to them. This caused a group of people to be incomparably resentful. They had never seen such attentive elders. They were too protective, weren't they? At this moment, it was already night time. It could be considered a true wedding night. The sky was dotted with stars and the moonlight was like water. Outside the window, green bamboos swayed and made rustling sounds. The bridal room was a palace. It was richly ornamented and dazzling with gold and jade. At the same time, it was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. It was very festive. Chufeng had experienced a great battle and was directly sent into the bridal room. He himself was a little dizzy because today's experience was really colorful. Qin Luoyin's face was exquisite and her beautiful hair hung loosely over her shoulders. She was boundlessly beautiful and appeared even more tender and beautiful under the light of the rainbow divine glass lamp. The curves of her graceful figure were perfect and astonishing. "Sai, I've been waiting for this day. You have to take responsibility for me," said Chufeng. No matter what, Qin Luoyin never thought that he would be so shameless and speak like this. But thinking about it carefully, it was really because she lost control in purgatory back then. Her sexy and bright red lips opened slightly as she was about to refute him. However, there was a soft thump in the distance. One of the old monsters from damning Pure Land hadn't left yet. He was clearly agitated when he heard Chufeng's words. He lost his balance and kicked over a stone block in the courtyard. "Senior, you're already so old. Can you stop eavesdropping?" said Chufeng. That old monster blushed slightly and disappeared from the courtyard with a swoosh. "Where's our son?" asked Chufeng with a smile, because he didn't sense the little Taoist's aura. He wasn't in his mother's body. Qin Luoyin immediately became bashful, which didn't match her usual graceful and noble goddess demeanor. In the end, she told him that she had already had a cesarean section. Chufeng had a carefree look on his face as he said with a smile, "So, our daughter can also come into this world?" At the same time, in damning Pure Land where many guests were staying, the elders of the quasi-saint race felt that something was wrong the more they pondered. In the end, they couldn't bear it any longer. "Everyone, we'll take this opportunity to announce to the public that we'll soon complete the marriage between the exiled immortal and Wu Luanhui. We'll immediately send out invitations." Everyone was in an uproar. The old monsters from damning Pure Land were terrified. Was the quasi-saint race going to kidnap the bride? But it was impossible now. They could talk about future matters in the future. Chapter 880. The lights were brightly lit, and one spirit mountain after another was even more magnificent at night. A luminous waterfall fell from the top of the mountain, and there were many colorful exotic flowers and trees. The entire damning Pure Land was very auspicious. People were toasting each other, and it was incomparably lively. In addition to the island floating in the sky, multicolored light lingered around it like a fairyland. The news from the quasi-immortal race was too shocking. Not only were the evolvers at the scene shocked, but the people watching the live broadcast from all over the universe were also dumbfounded. The exiled fairy with the most immortal aura is going to get married. This makes me sad, especially since she's going to marry Wu Luanhui. I suspect he's also the great demon Chufeng. Oh God, I don't want to live anymore. How can people live in this world? The top-ranked goddesses and fairies in the universe are actually going to marry the same great demon. I want to kill someone. What are you talking about? How can the supremely righteous Luanhui king be the great demon Chufeng? They're two different people, okay? But if they're the same person, I really don't dare to imagine that kind of scene. There's no love in life. Great demon Chufeng, come out. I want to duel with you. It's fine if you marry a goddess, but you want to forcibly occupy a fairy. How can people be reluctant to leave this world? The heavenly law is unfair. This is simply a bolt from the blue, and it makes all my hopes turn to dust. In just a moment, the young people from all over the universe were already boiling. Each and every one of them was indignant and hurt. They wanted nothing more than to attack together and eliminate Great Demon Chu. In damning Pure Land, a few elders of the quasi-immortal race stared at the relevant people. All of them had unkind expressions and their hearts were full of suspicion. The old monsters of damning Pure Land were incomparably guilty. They had to deal with tonight no matter what. They absolutely couldn't compromise and admit the truth. The back mountain was very quiet, and in a brightly lit palace. This was Chufeng and Qin Luoyin's wedding room. At this moment, strange sounds were coming from it. In the distance, a cloud of mist wrapped around a very young child. He was like a baby, and he was running strenuously toward the back mountain with his short legs. I'm already heaven-defying enough, suppressing the confusion in my womb. But in the end, I still can't break free. Following the absorption of the mysterious mist from the reincarnation cave, I'll most likely be lost for 3 years. I can't accept this. It was none other than the little Taoist. The wisps of mist around his body were thin as he took large strides and rushed up the spiritual mountain. He ran towards the direction of his parents' bridal room. He heard a sound from a distance away. He muttered to himself, "Great Demon Chu, you still owe me an apology. You haven't returned my black talisman. I'm not that easy to bully. Even though you're my father, you can't do this to me." He was fuming, trying to come up with a bad idea. When he was very close to the courtyard, he pricked up his pair of small ears, blinked a pair of dark but spirited eyes, and with a smirk on his face, he directly began to shout the slogan, 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 4. This damn child. He was definitely the kind of person who would tear the roof tiles if he didn't get a good beating. In the dark, there were 6 old monsters from damning Pure Land keeping watch here to protect Chufeng and Qin Luoyin. They were afraid that accidents would occur due to a night attack, and they were also afraid that the quasi-saint race would come to snatch the wedding. Of course, they didn't eavesdrop and stood far enough to avoid awkwardness. But they absolutely didn't expect that this little Taoist would kill his way out at the last juncture before the other powers even made a move. Moreover, he was so rebellious. The few old monsters' faces immediately turned green. At the same time, they really wanted to beat this brat up. How could they have such a son? Destroying his mother's wedding? Running outside the courtyard to shout slogans on the wedding night was too unscrupulous. At the same time, such a young child already knew everything. He was too monstrous. The few old monsters were so angry that they directly jumped out. Shouting slogans like this wouldn't scare Chufeng and something would happen to him, right? Putting themselves in his shoes, this was too King terrifying. "Elders, why are you stopping me? I'm here to see my mother." The little Taoist was all smiles. He hadn't been born for many days, yet he could already run all over the place and speak fluently. This made the few old monsters dizzy and shocked. The main thing was that they didn't understand the little Taoist because Qin Luoyin hadn't told them in detail. Very soon, their faces turned deathly pale because according to their understanding, this matter was hidden from Chufeng. The Pure Land Saintess was pregnant before marriage, and this matter couldn't be leaked. At this moment, they transformed into 6 beams of light and pounced over. All of them went to cover the little Taoist's mouth, and wished they could suppress him immediately. If this matter was exposed, it would be a big problem. They believed that the great demon King Chu Feng definitely wouldn't be kind. 1, 2, 1. The little Taoist was like a dead pig that wasn't afraid of boiling water. With nimble movements, he rushed into the courtyard with a whoosh. He was smiling very happily and also very despicably. There was immediately no movement in the bridal room. In reality, not long ago, Chu Feng and Qin Luoyin heard the little Taoist's slogans. They were so angry in their hearts that they really wanted to strangle this damn child to death. However, they didn't do anything too inappropriate for children just now. It was just a simple exchange of blows. The main reason was because Qin Luoyin was embarrassed and angry. She felt that Chu Feng was shameless and spoke nonsense. He actually exposed her and mentioned the purgatory. It was also fortunate that this was the case. If this damned child really ran over after resting, the two of them would probably fly into a rage out of humiliation and beat him to death. Whoosh! Chu Feng rushed out and a few old monsters came along with him. They were currently surrounding the little Taoist. Chi. In the end, it was still Chu Feng's strength that was more profound. He used the light of yin and yang to lock the little Taoist in place before grabbing him in his hand. "What are you doing?" Chu Feng revealed a mouthful of white teeth as he stared at the little Taoist. He was really infuriated and really wanted to smack his buttocks into 18 pieces. "Nothing much. I like to run at night and just happened to come here to find my mother." The little Taoist was like a dead duck with a dead duck's mouth as he explained. Of course, he was only halfway through when an old monster covered his mouth and grabbed him. The old monsters from damning Pure Land were simply scared to death. They really wanted to roar in anger. Who was watching over this little fellow? This was a serious dereliction of duty. How could they let him run to the bridal chamber? They were going to stir up a huge disaster. This child doesn't understand anything. He's my grandson and lacks discipline. In the end, he ran here to cause trouble. I'll take him away immediately, an old woman said very unnaturally with a pale face. At the same time, she covered the little Taoist's mouth and didn't let him speak. Chu Feng understood what was going on as soon as he saw it. He cursed silently in his heart that this group of old bastards from damning Pure Land were really deceiving him. They deliberately concealed the truth and lacked morals. Fortunately, he was the one who had cuckolded himself. At this time, Qin Luoyin also appeared. She was wearing a brightly colored gown that set off her beautiful body more and more perfectly. Her curves rose up and down in a completely golden ratio. At the same time, she displayed a graceful and luxurious bearing and had the style of a goddess. Whoosh! The little Taoist broke free from the old woman's hand in a flash and rushed toward Qin Luoyin, shouting, "Mother!" At this moment, the hearts of the old monsters from damning Pure Land almost stopped beating. They were seriously frightened and their faces were deathly pale without a trace of blood. How could they explain this? At the same time, some other old monsters rushed over after receiving a secret report. They rushed into the new house at the back of the mountain and just happened to see this scene. All of their faces turned green. There was a faint smile on Chu Feng's face as he said, "Elders, I need an explanation. Can you guys tell me what's going on?" He didn't get angry, nor did he get angry, but this made the group of old monsters even more apprehensive. They felt that a great disaster was imminent. This great demon had been cuckolded and would definitely go crazy. Many people might die here. Their hearts palpitated and their scalps went numb as they prepared for battle. However, Chu Feng sighed in the end and said, "I've long since sensed that you guys were hiding something from me, but doing so is too unkind. But the matter is already settled, and it won't be good for anyone if word of this gets out. How about this? I'm a very direct person. Hand over that damning breathing technique and another divine medicine. This way, everything will be fine. From now on, he'll be my son." As he spoke, Chu Feng waved his hand and, with a swoosh, captured the little Taoist once again. The little Taoist opened his eyes wide and cried out in his heart. This biological father was indeed shameless. As expected of a human trafficker, a great demon with a thick face and a black heart. He didn't forget to extort even at such a critical juncture. The group of old monsters from the damning Pure Land was stunned and deeply astonished. This was too unexpected. Demon Chu Feng actually didn't turn hostile and was instead negotiating with them? But very soon, their expressions became incomparably unsightly. This condition was too harsh. The damning breathing technique was the foundation of their sect and a sect-guarding ultimate art. How could it be passed on to outsiders? Other than that, the divine medicine was even more precious. It was reserved for the Heaven Illuminator ancestor to prolong his life. It was priceless, so how could it be given away so easily? But as they saw it, it was already a good situation that Chu Feng didn't turn hostile on the spot and start a massacre. If he were to fly into a rage out of humiliation, rivers of blood would flow in the Pure Land. That was because they had not only witnessed his martial cultivation but also his peerless domain technique. There was absolutely no one who could stop him. Chu Feng said again, "Forget it, I'll take a step back and only choose one. Either you teach me the damning breathing technique and I promise I won't leak it to others, or you give me the divine medicine and I'll only eat the flower and leave. I'll leave the roots for you to continue growing." The group of old monsters hesitated. They felt that it wasn't impossible to negotiate. Why don't we let him swear the oath and then teach him the first part of the damning breathing technique? No, it's better to give him the divine medicine. How can you do this? You can't compromise. These two things can't be given to outsiders. They're the lifeline of our Pure Land. The group of old monsters couldn't agree on the same thing and started arguing in secret. Qin Luoqin couldn't stand it anymore. She rolled her eyes and looked at Chu Feng. She felt that he was too shameless to actually take advantage of the situation to extort them. "You won't recognize this, son, if we don't give you the breathing technique and divine medicine?" She rolled her eyes at Chu Feng. I feel that if they don't give me the divine medicine and breathing technique, I can consider not recognizing him." This wasn't Chu Feng's voice, but the little Taoist's mumbling. "Unfilial son, you're just as thick-skinned as your father." Qin Luoyin was furious. A few black lines appeared on her peerlessly beautiful face as she directly grabbed the little Taoist back. She swung her snow-white, jade-like palms and slapped his little buttocks ruthlessly. The sound of the slap was crisp and clear. "Luoyin, let's talk this out." Some old monsters were anxious because they didn't understand what was going on. "Father, save me!" the little Taoist cried out. After that, the group of old monsters saw that Chu Feng had also gone over but didn't save the little Taoist. Instead, he followed Qin Luoyin and beat the little Taoist until he cried out like a ghost. "Amitabha Buddha, what's going on?" However, they were all very astute and quickly figured out what was going on. The group of old monsters was furious. They pointed at Chu Feng but couldn't say anything. This was simply too much of a scam. They were alarmed and thought that they had caused Great Demon Chu to suffer a great loss and leave behind a stain that couldn't be told for the rest of their lives. In the end, after the truth was revealed, they were petrified and almost had a heart attack. "You evil tyrant, it's actually you." The saintess gave birth before marriage. "Oh my heart hurts. I've been holding my breath for so long. I'm so angry. This is really preposterous. Great Demon Chu Feng, you've gone too far. You and the saintess. I want to vomit blood." The group of old monsters was irascible. They were so angry that they were trembling all over. They really couldn't accept this result. Chu Feng retorted, "Could it be that you want someone else? Isn't this the best result? You bunch of old fools actually want to deceive me. All of you lack morals." The group of old monsters' faces turned red and their faces alternated between green and white. In the end, they weren't in the right. An old woman looked at Qin Luoyin with a strange expression. The truth of the matter was actually like this. No wonder the saintess had been so calm from the beginning. Go, 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 all of you go. Don't disturb my wedding night. Chu Feng drove them away. He also threw the little Taoist who had been beaten up out of the courtyard. In the end, this place became quiet. Only Chu Feng and Qin Luoyin were left. The two entered the brightly lit palace hall. Let's also rest. Prepare for 1-2-1, said Chu Feng. How can you be so thick-skinned? What nonsense are you spouting? Qin Luoyin was embarrassed and angry. Then 1-2-3-4, said Chu Feng. Following this, the sound of Qin Luoyin grinding her teeth and attacking could be heard. She really wanted to teach him a lesson. The lights were extinguished. A cloud floated past and blocked the moon. I was so passive last time. Don't tell me you're going to bully me again this time? These were Chu Feng's last words. Bang, bang, bang. Qin Luoyin attacked but quickly quieted down because she wasn't his match. Chapter 881. Early in the morning, the red sun gushed out with multicolored light and jumped out of the horizon, dyeing the beautiful mountain peaks red. A commotion came from the bridal chamber at the back of the mountain. Someone had made a move but was subdued in the end. The domain runes flickered for a long time before everything became peaceful. The old monsters of the damning Pure Land felt suffocated. They hadn't slept well all night and felt suffocated. Recently, they had always felt guilty toward Demon King Chu Feng. Who would have thought that they would want to vomit blood when the truth was revealed? Chu Feng finally got up and stood in front of the palace on the Spirit Mountain. He faced the red sun and circulated the robbery induction breathing technique. His whole body was bathed in golden and red radiance, looking divine and dignified. Father, did you sleep well? At the foot of the mountain, the little Taoist climbed up. He had no choice because he had been sealed. Neither the old monsters of the damning Pure Land nor Chu Feng could stand him. He had actually come to the bridal chamber last night. They had never seen such a son who deserved a beating. Chu Feng looked down at him and said, "Go wash up and pay your respects to your grandpa and grandma." Oh my God! The little Taoist almost rolled down the mountain after hearing this. He muttered to himself in a daze, "I'm not ready yet." "Bah, what do you need to prepare?" Chu Feng cast him a sidelong glance. The little Taoist said, "You and my mother have just finished the bridal chamber, and you're already taking me to see the two elders. Won't I be looking for trouble if I go? I'll be discriminated against even if I don't get beaten to death." At the same time, he felt that this father was quite unreliable. Qin Luoyin appeared. She had finished washing up and was wearing a bright silver dress that dragged on the ground. She stood at the top of the mountain and welcomed the morning glow. Her clothes fluttered in the cool breeze like a goddess from the 9 heavens about to ascend. She possessed a perfect appearance, bright eyes, white teeth, and a graceful figure. Especially when bathed in the morning glow, her entire body was suffused with a faint golden luster. She became increasingly transcendent as though she didn't belong to this world. Qin Luoyin no longer acted like a goddess after learning of Chu Feng's decision. She wanted to beat him up. How could she raise her head when she went to see the other party's parents on the first day of marriage with a son? "It's fine. My parents are the most open-minded. I'll just tell them the truth. Besides, only they know. Outsiders don't know." Finally, the family of 3 set off. After the old monsters of damning Pure Land saw this, all of their expressions became odd and their faces twitched. They really couldn't stand this great demon Chu. Chu Feng's parents had woken up long ago. Through the optical computer, they knew that Chu Feng was going to bring his daughter-in-law to greet them according to the old customs of Earth. Both of them were delighted. However, when they saw Chu Feng walk in with his beautiful daughter-in-law, followed by a little girl, they were stunned. What was going on? What made them most flustered was that the little one was very lively and had a sweet mouth. He skipped over and shouted, "Grandpa, Grandma!" Chu Yuan was still drinking tea when he spat it out with a pff. The tea in his mouth almost spilled onto the little Taoist. Wang Jing wasn't any better. She choked on her tea and coughed incessantly. "Grandpa, Grandma, drink your tea slowly." This little one was very obedient and nimble. He climbed onto the rattan chair and massaged their backs in succession. He looked very obedient and his large eyes were like black gems. At the same time, they were rolling around. Chu Feng's father was usually the calmest. But now, he couldn't help but secretly transmit his voice to Chu Feng. What was going on? His mother could also transmit her voice telepathically because her evolutionary level wasn't low. She nervously asked Chu Feng if the extraterrestrials could give birth so quickly. Chu Feng felt that this matter wasn't done satisfactorily enough. He could only give a simple explanation in secret with a rare blush on his old face. If even he was like this, then one could see Qin Luoyin's current situation and state. Her lustrous and beautiful face was now flushed red. Her usual dignified and noble demeanor had disappeared. Only the little Taoist was quite open. He called out "Grandma" and "Grandpa" incomparably affectionately. Chu Yuan and Wang Jing were really dizzy. They only came back to their senses after a long while and gradually calmed their emotions. Fortunately, their nerves were thick enough. Otherwise, this impact wasn't something ordinary people could endure. Wang Jing said, "Luoyin, good child. I've let you suffer. Tell us if Chu Feng dares to bully you in the future. I guarantee that we'll put him in his place." This was said to Qin Luoyin, but in the end, the little Taoist's eyes lit up. With a swoosh, he climbed onto Wang Jing's lap and smiled brilliantly like a flower bud. Of course, in his father's eyes, this was too fake. He was trying to curry favor for no reason. "Grandma, I'll help you massage your leg," Wang Jing said. "Eldest grandson is really gifted. He's just been born and he can already call me Grandma. Fortunately, Grandma has experienced all kinds of things in the past 2 years. Otherwise, I'd really feel uneasy." This was only the first day. Not only did they bring a grandson over, but this child already knew how to call her grandma and flatter her a few days after he was born. Wang Jing and Chu Yuan felt that they were in trouble. Fortunately, they had seen all kinds of strange things. Even an alien became a daughter-in-law. The two of them even ran to the depths of the universe, so there was nothing unacceptable about it. After experiencing the initial discomfort, Wang Jing and Chu Yuan got used to it. Moreover, they liked the little Taoist very much because his mouth was too sweet. In the past, they always urged Chu Feng to get married and settle down early. In the end, they didn't get what they wanted. Now, not only did Chu Feng get married, but he also exceeded the quota and directly gave them a grandson. After the two of them recovered from their shock, they began to feel happy and excited. "Grandma, my father bullied me." As expected, the little Taoist began to complain after being unaccountably solicitous. "What's wrong?" asked Wang Jing. "He snatched one of my black talismans and still refuses to give it to me. You have to uphold justice for me." The little Taoist acted like a spoiled child in Wang Jing's embrace. Chu Feng felt a chill run down his spine when he saw this. This was originally what Wang Jing said to Qin Luoyin. She said that if Chu Feng bullied her, she should directly tell her and Chu Yuan. She wanted to draw closer the relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. In the end, the little Taoist really used it. "Little Feng, you're really outrageous. You're snatching something from a child. Quickly return it to him," said Chu Yuan. Chu Feng felt his chest tighten. What was this? He could beat his son, but in the end, his father could also warn him. Especially since this was caused by his son, the little Taoist, complaining. He really wanted to teach this brat a lesson. "He's just a brat. What does he know? Don't believe him," explained Chu Feng. He felt that bringing this child to see his parents was a mistake. Qin Luoyin's charm was exceptional. At this moment she revealed a smile. Her charm was fairly moving as she looked at her own son. The little Taoist seemed to be encouraged. He immediately quarreled with Chu Feng. Of course, he was very gentle. He didn't dare to be a disobedient son and argued very gently. But no matter what, he was still insulting his father. Don't bully a child. How old are you? Return it to him later. Wang Jing made the final decision. Okay. Chu Feng felt that he had shot himself in the foot by bringing this child here. Grandma, Grandpa, what on earth is our family heirloom? Asked the little Taoist with an innocent and unaffected look. His eyes were incomparably pure. Chu Feng wiped his sweat. At the same time, he wanted to beat him up even more. This little thief was really treacherous to start from here. Fortunately, these two elders didn't know about the so-called family heirloom at all. Otherwise, he would really have found out about it today. In the end, when they left, Chu Feng insisted on bringing the little Taoist with him because he wanted to find a place without people to ruthlessly teach him a lesson. In the end, the little Taoist's mouth was as sweet as honey. He stuck to the side of the two elders and refused to leave no matter what. He directly stayed behind. The two elders liked this grandson very much. They felt that he was precocious, sensible, lively, and quick-witted. Chu Feng could only leave by himself with a black face. That was because even Qin Luoyin didn't leave. She stayed here to chat with the two elders and also understood his past from the side. The great demon Chu Feng has come out. Sai, our junior sister, is the most famous goddess in the starry skies. In the end, she fell into a pit of fire and married this demon. My heart hurts so much. In Damring Pure Land, some young disciples were giving pointers to Chu Feng from afar. At the same time, many people were filled with a sense of defeat and had nothing to live for. Chu Feng glared and said, "You people aren't cultivating properly. You're here in groups of 3 to 5 and talking nonsense. What kind of propriety is this? Come, follow me to cultivate." After that, this group of people met with a tragedy. He brought them to the martial practice field and sparred with them. None of them could stand up. Chu Feng regarded himself as the sovereign sect master as he instructed this group of people. This made this group of young disciples suffer in silence. They dared to be angry, but they didn't dare to say anything. That was because the great demon Chu Feng had even killed a minor saint from the outer realms who was on par with a quasi-saint at the wedding yesterday. Who would dare to be dissatisfied? In the Pure Land, a group of old fellows also turned a blind eye and let Chu Feng torment them. It was good to teach these disciples a lesson and encourage them to cultivate in a disguised way. A large number of guests bade farewell and left Damring Pure Land. Some important guests needed Chu Feng to see them off, such as the Buddhist race, the quasi-saint race, and the Tao race. The others were still fine, but when it was the quasi-saint race's turn to see him off, the race's elder grabbed his hand very excitedly. He wasn't willing to let go no matter what as he sized him up and down and looked at him repeatedly. In the end, the quasi-saint race's elder said, "Our race's saintess is going to get married to Wu Luanhui. I hope little friend will also attend the wedding." Chu Feng's scalp swelled. He really didn't know how to respond. Up until this point, did the quasi-saint race still not know who he was? We'll definitely keep the appointment. I hope nothing happens to Wu Luanhui, an old woman from Damring Pure Land replied. What's going on? Chu Feng was suspicious. The silver-haired little Lolita secretly explained and said, "Brother-in-law, are you stupid? A month ago, my race's elder already spread the word in the universe that we have to continue the marriage for my elder sister and Wu Luanhui no matter what. Even if there's no Wu Luanhui, we have to create a Wu Luanhui. So, you can't run away. You must go." Chu Feng was speechless. Could it be that the second wedding was going to start immediately? He was also a little disorderly. This tempo was too fast. When the quasi-saint race left, the silver-haired little Lolita looked back with a smile and sweetly shouted, "Brother-in-law, goodbye." This scene made many people widen their eyes because there were still many guests. They used all their strength to dig their ears to make sure they didn't hear wrongly. At this moment, Ingwudi clutched his chest. He felt unbearable pain and staggered into the distance with the race's elder. He was very hurt. Finally, 90% of the guests had already left. Chu Feng hurriedly went to visit his group of brothers. Big Black Yak, Ouyang Feng, Yellow Cattle, Young Lady Shi, and the others. What? Yao Yao has an ominous premonition, so you guys left Earth and entered the starry sky? Chu Feng now knew the truth and was very shocked. Yes, Princess Yao Yao is very solemn and very serious. Her attitude is completely different from before. Yellow Cattle nodded. Chu Feng immediately became solemn and discussed countermeasures with them. We'll leave after staying in the Pure Land for a few days. When we leave, we'll bring your parents and prepare to live in seclusion. I keep feeling that something's wrong with this part of the universe. Something big might happen. Yes, we'll keep a low profile for now. We'll all hide and don't cause trouble. This was the decision of a group of great demons from Kunlun. Even Young Lady She agreed. At the same time, she ignored Chu Feng and had a lot of opinions about his marriage. In the following days, Chu Feng was very leisurely. When he had nothing to do, he would run to a golden lake to fish for old turtles and golden dragons. After boiling them, he would invite his brothers over for a drink. The damning Pure Land didn't notice at first, but after they found out, the group of old monsters became anxious. Motherf *Ker, that was a spiritual creature raised by those ancient saints. Recently, this brat came to fish every day. He was too disgraceful. It just so happened that no one had noticed before because Chu Feng understood domains. It was as if he had entered an uninhabited realm. Aren't I a newlywed? I need to nourish myself to avoid kidney deficiency. When Chu Feng was caught, he still spoke with justice. This made Qin Luoyin, who had rushed over after hearing the news, blush. She turned around angrily and ran away while twisting her small waist. She couldn't say anything else. Chu Feng's skin was too tough. Look, Luoyin is embarrassed. We're newlyweds, this is very normal. Don't run, it's already late. Let's return home as husband and wife. The group of old monsters was speechless. In less than 2 days, the group of old monsters from the damning Pure Land was on the verge of collapse. That was because they discovered that Chu Feng was studying the domains in the depths of the Pure Land. He wanted to sneak into the divine medicine fields and touch the treasures of the heaven illuminators. At the same time, they also discovered that Chu Feng was studying the first part of the damning breathing technique. They didn't know how he had obtained it in the Pure Land, but it was suspected that he had entered the Tao Comprehension Hall. Chu Feng, help me deliver a letter. I don't feel at ease with others. They were simply forced into a corner. The group of old monsters from the damning Pure Land felt a headache coming on. They wanted to send him away for a few days and think of a way first. Okay. Chu Feng agreed happily. He left the damning Pure Land with the letter and went to work seriously. Oh no, we made a mistake amidst the chaos. If we let him go like this, won't we be fulfilling his wishes? Will that demon Chu Feng run to the quasi-immortal race to get married? This is bad. Chapter 882. Chu Feng had left, but there was still no peace in the Pure Land. That was because there was still a little one, who was even more troublesome than his father and was causing a huge ruckus. He was as small as a fart, yet he was also clamoring about wanting to nourish his body. He would run to the medicinal garden when he had nothing to do and stared at those divine-level old herbs with green light in his eyes. Woof, woof, woof. A small dog with golden stripes all over its body bared its teeth as it chased after the little Taoist and bit his buttocks continuously. Boundless deity, save me! Who can undo the seal? This little Taoist has been bitten by a dog. Ouch, it hurts. My buttocks are about to be bitten into mush. However, no one sympathized with him. A few old monsters watched from afar and simply didn't pay him any attention. This fellow wasn't worthy of sympathy. He was always stirring up trouble. Even when he was drinking milk, he would still tease cats and dogs. He would feel uncomfortable all over if he didn't stir up some trouble. In particular, this little dog's origins weren't small. It was the cub of a divine dog, and there was only one of it in its litter. It was the treasure of the damning Pure Land. Regardless of whether it was humans or evolvers of other races, it was very difficult to have descendants once they reached the Golden Arhat realm. It was even more difficult and extremely rare after entering the Saint realm. The stronger one was, the harder it was to continue the bloodline. Otherwise, evolvers standing at the top of the pyramid could create a group of descendants with terrifying bloodlines. That would be enough to sweep through the world. Save me! The little Taoist ran and cried for his father and mother as he was bitten. In reality, his seal had already been slightly undone, but he was still bitten miserably by this golden-striped dog. The main reason was that this dog's bloodline was too powerful. It ran like the wind after being born and could break all kinds of weapons with a single bite. There was a vertical eye hidden between its brows that could shoot out terrifying killing rays. Fortunately, it didn't kill him. Otherwise, the little Taoist would be even more tragic. Damn dog, shut up. Don't bite me anymore. I just drank one more bowl of milk. Is there a need to be like this? Damn it, when I grow up, I can even squeeze out a large basin of true dragon milk for you, not to mention divine dog milk. You're too stingy. Ouch, boundless deity, F***ck, don't bite me. The little Taoist scurried and skipped. His movements were very agile, and he immediately climbed up the mountain cliff with a whoosh. However, there was a little dog hanging on his butt all along. After the dog bit him, it wouldn't let go no matter what and followed him to the top of the mountain. Motherf***, little dog, you're really going too far. The dog milk was given to me by those old fools. You should go bite them. The little Taoist did his best to jump around as he wanted to shake off the little dog on his butt. However, he was in so much pain that he grimaced in pain. This little saint dog didn't make a sound and just didn't loosen its grip. In the distance, some old monsters were meditating on the brown boulders under the pine trees. They opened their eyes when they heard this, but they were all watching the show and didn't come over to rescue him. Before the holy guardian beast left for the Chaosverse, it had left behind a large amount of milk for the pup, which was then sealed and stored. After the little Taoist was born, he also had the good fortune of having good food. After all, it was a saint-level blessing. However, the little Taoist wasn't content. After he finished drinking his share, he even went to steal the little dog's share. In the end, he was viciously chased and killed. The dog wouldn't stop until it bit him. Did we have enmity in our previous lives? Is there a need for you to do this for a bowl of milk? The little Taoist couldn't stand the pain. He felt that his butt was about to rot and he couldn't get rid of it at all. I also feel that we have enmity. I'll bite you to death. The little dog bared its fangs as it spoke, but it still didn't let go. You can even talk when you're so small. Don't tell me you're also reincarnated? Tell me which cosmos you're from and see what I did to you in my previous life. Woof, woof, woof. In the Pure Land, chickens were flying and dogs were jumping. The little one was causing trouble in the Pure Land, and the big one had already entered the starry skies. The travel expenses were paid by the damning Pure Land. As he stood in the cosmos and looked at the bright sea of stars, Chu Feng deeply felt how insignificant he was. Even though he could be considered extremely powerful, he was still insignificant when compared to the vast starry skies. He was like a speck of dust when compared to a planet, and when compared to the entire cosmos, he could be completely ignored. However, his heart was also surging. Through evolution and cultivation, he could transcend above and reach the saint realm. Even if his corporeal body was as small as a speck of dust, he could still pry open a planet. Heaven-piercing wormhole vampire, send me to the azure wave star domain. After delivering the letter, Chu Feng decided to go out for a stroll. The cosmos was so vast, and the sea of stars was so bright. He really wanted to go around, especially to some flourishing regions that were filled with brilliant evolutionary civilizations. The Azure Wave star domain was an extremely flourishing land in the netherworld cosmos. It could be called the center of an evolutionary civilization. It was located at the border of the Buddhist race, the Tao race, and the demon race, and belonged to an ungoverned region. It was also precisely because of this that this place became increasingly prosperous. The fairies, saintesses, elite disciples of the top 10 races, as well as stowaways and old devils were all willing to carry out some transactions here. There were also people who came here to gain experience and so on. Esteemed distinguished guest, you can't always call us vampires. We practice equivalent exchange, and the benefits we earn aren't that much. A woman's voice came from the photon computer. It was magnetic and very pleasant to listen to. Tell me, how many cosmic dollars has your heaven-piercing wormhole cheated me out of so far? The so-called VIP treatment isn't reflected at all. Chu Feng complained. He had really spent quite a lot of cosmic dollars on the heaven-piercing wormhole. He secretly calculated that he would definitely snatch business from them after he reached the Saint Realm. Yes, you can enjoy a lot of VIP services. Please wait a moment, I'll help you check. The pleasant voice was magnetic and very gentle. Her attitude was very good. Chu Feng felt numb. This was the first time he had an illusion just from hearing a voice. He suspected that it was an exceptional beauty. He opened his mouth and said, "Oh, there are a lot of services. Is there a massage or foot massage service?" On the other side of the cosmos, a blue-haired beauty's appearance was indeed exceptional and impeccable. Her golden ratio figure was perfect and astonishing. Right now, she was facing the photon computer, but she still maintained a smile and said, "There is. Do you want one? We can open up a wormhole and send someone over to help you massage your feet. There really is one. Why don't you come over?" Chu Feng didn't believe her, feeling that the other party wasn't reliable. That was why he also undependably brought up this request. Finally, on the other side of the cosmos, this blue-haired beauty couldn't maintain her smile. On her matchless appearance, her expression became rigid. She inwardly clenched her teeth and said, "This fella is even more shameless than the information on him. Too shameless. Making me, the grand second beauty under the heavens, massage your feet. I want to beat you to death." She gritted her teeth and bit her bright red and sexy lip. The temperament displayed by this action didn't match the voice Chu Feng had heard. It was no longer gentle. On the side, a young lady was wiping her sweat. She was the true customer service representative of the Wormhole Express Company. In the end, the daughter of the company's tycoon had come to experience it and personally received the great demon Chu Feng. This made her sweat like a waterfall. And now, she heard that the great demon Chu Feng was taking liberties with the company's #1 pearl, the second beauty under the heavens. She was instantly speechless. Chu Feng waited for a long time but didn't hear a reply. He said, "Hey, why is there no sound? Foot masseur girl, don't tell me you've really started on your way. Let me tell you, if your looks scare me, hurry up and go back by yourself. Don't show your face." On the other side of the universe, the second beauty under the heavens, that graceful beauty with blue hair like satin, was now staring with her big watery eyes. She was so angry that she wanted to find someone to immediately grab hold of Chu Feng and beat him up. This was too shameful. This guy had no shame at all. He actually had such a look of disdain for her. How hateful! She should find someone to beat him into 8 pieces. On the side, the real customer service representative was sweating profusely. She kept feeling that she had heard something she shouldn't have. To describe the CEO's princess as a foot masseur, there was no one else like this. Chu Feng was suspicious. Why was there no sound at all? He said, "If you don't say anything, it's a tacit agreement. I'm warning you, don't come over. It was all a joke just now. I don't need a foot masseur girl like you. Tell me about the other VIP services." On the other side of the universe, the Princess of the Wormhole Express really wanted to go berserk. It didn't match her usual bright and beautiful temperament. The other party had actually classified her as a foot masseur again and again. However, she endured it in the end. She didn't want to expose herself and patiently read out some VIP services to Chu Feng. At the same time, she was endlessly regretful. She shouldn't have been so curious and actually communicated with a human trafficker, tyrant, and devil like this. Her heart was incomparably depressed. "Oh, the service isn't bad. When I'm in a good mood one day, I'll call you over to massage my feet. Yes, it's you. I'll remember your voice. If there's someone else, I'll make a complaint. Now, help me open the super wormhole. The target is Azure Wave Star." On the other side of the universe, the beautiful Pearl of the Wormhole Express Company was so angry that she called for people to open the wormhole. If it wasn't for the fear of damaging the company's reputation, she really wanted to directly teleport Chu Feng to dangerous places like the Great Abyss or the Nine Nether. She always felt that this devil was too hateful. Whoosh! A super wormhole appeared. Chu Feng rushed in and soon arrived in front of a huge vital planet. This was a star system of a 7-star evolutionary civilization. It was very prosperous and powerful. Anyone who entered would need to report, and Chu Feng was no exception. He had already reported when he was in outer space. Wow, the devil Chu Feng is here. Oh my God, he's now at the heart of the struggle, and he still dares to travel like this. Isn't he afraid of being besieged by a group of angry goddess fans? Tisk, why don't you think about it? He even dared to kill a minor saint from the outerverse. Which blind person would dare to touch him? Before Chu Feng had even come down from outer space, Azure Wave Star was already in a clamor. Originally, this kind of report couldn't be known by everyone. However, Chu Feng's background was too great. Recently, he had caused all kinds of sensational news, so it was impossible to keep it a secret even if he wanted to. A grand planet with exuberant vitality. This ancient planet of a 7-star civilization is intertwined with the laws of order. Even a saint can't pry open it. Chu Feng was astonished and carefully sized it up. This planet, which was part dark red and part azure blue, rotated slowly. There was a majestic pressure as divine order chains interweaved densely. Low-level evolvers simply couldn't break free from its suppression and couldn't fly. This king is patrolling the heavens. After reporting, I'm going to enter Azure Wave Star. Is there anyone to receive me? He asked shamelessly. However, as soon as he finished speaking, several giant battleships appeared and flew out of the wormhole, saying that they would receive him to the surface. It could be seen that the powers on the surface attached great importance to this matter. That was because this devil was notorious. They were afraid that he would disregard all consequences and beat up the saints and goddesses of the major evolutionary sections. Then, he would capture them and sell them to them. Am I that famous? You guys are really going to receive me? Chu Feng mumbled. Your great name is known by the whole universe. You must enjoy the highest standard of courtesy. In reality, they really wanted to say, you're a great devil whose notoriety shakes the starry sea. What if you don't serve him well and cause trouble here? A group of people surrounded Chu Feng when he landed on the battleship. They were mainly from the Black Blood platform and the Origin Beast platform. Of course, there were also celebrities from this planet. Excuse me, Great Devil Chu Feng, Divine King, just what is your relationship with Wu Luanhui? This was a tan beauty from the Black Blood platform who asked this question. Although her voice was gentle, it was fairly sharp. Not only did she want to know and dig out the truth of this explosive riddle, but the other platforms also urgently wanted to know the answer. They were preparing to broadcast it live to the whole universe. That was because the whole starry sky was discussing this question these days. It was a heated debate. Many people believed that Wu Luanhui was Chu Feng and that the two were the same person. But there was no proof. He himself had never opened his mouth to prove anything. Now, this was a rare opportunity. Many cameras were aimed at Chu Feng for a live broadcast. This was to unveil the ultimate truth in front of all the evolvers in the starry sky. The second chapter will probably be written very late. There are all kinds of activities during the reading conference, but I'll write the second chapter no matter how late it is. But don't wait too late. Chapter 883. Seeing that Chu Feng didn't reply immediately, a young streamer immediately charged in front of him and asked in a loud voice, "Chu Feng, may I ask if you're Wu Luanhui or not? Don't tell me you don't dare to answer such a question? I think I already have the answer." She threw caution to the wind in order to fight for the eyeballs. Although she was trembling in her heart, there was also excitement in the depths of her eyes. Chu Feng glanced at her from the corner of his eyes, and then looked at the crowd. He was surrounded by a group of people as soon as he landed. They wanted to give him a live broadcast in the entire starry sea? Moreover, they were so unscrupulous. Why should he cooperate? He felt that this group of people was taking things for granted. Bang! In a split second, all the filming equipment nearby exploded and emitted black smoke before turning into fine powder. At the same time, the young streamer who shouted at him and rushed to his chin flew out. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth as he hung on a battleship. It was like a painting scroll that made him feel incomparably terrified. In an instant there was absolute silence. Only then did people realize that this was Great Demon Chu. He wasn't someone that they, the so-called uncrowned king, could approach casually. At the same time, many people throughout the starry sky were shocked and felt their hearts beating violently. The live broadcast was suddenly interrupted. Could it be that those people in front were all killed by the great demon Chu Feng? What divine King Chu? Did you see that? He killed people at the slightest disagreement. As expected, his demonic nature is deep. Chu Feng's haters naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity. They discussed heatedly in the starry sky and wantonly said that Chu Feng's evil nature was too heavy and that it was completely the style of a great demon. That's right. He kills people like flies and is bloodthirsty and demonic. How can he be called a divine king? No matter how powerful he is, his temperament doesn't match. Of course, there were people who retorted, "It's just a live broadcast being interrupted. You guys just randomly put labels on him." Speaking of which, although Chu Feng is called a great demon, he really hasn't killed anyone. At most, he only sells people. Damn, you still have the nerve to say that? Selling saints and goddesses every day is actually so light and airy in your mouth. You don't take it seriously. Naturally, there were also people who defended him. Some of them argued for what was right, causing Chu Feng's friends to blush. Don't slander me. Haven't you heard of the kind and honest divine King Chu? How could he kill people indiscriminately? He is extremely kind. Even if he killed them, it was because those people deserved to be killed. I say, brother, you've crossed the line. Are you here to defend, or are you a high-level hater? However, very quickly, everyone's discussion stopped. When the live broadcast resumed, Chu Feng's expression was gentle, like a spring breeze. The group of interviewers also laughed along with him. The atmosphere was harmonious and amiable. Sorry, due to technical reasons, the live broadcast was temporarily interrupted. It's back up now. In fact, a piece of news quickly spread through the starry sky. The great demon Chufeng was accepting an interview, but he had a high appearance fee. He had negotiated terms with all the major platforms. You devil, you're really realistic. You actually appeared on camera with a price. You really are greedy for money. Shoo, don't say any more. Listen to what he has to say. Is he Luanhui king or not? At this moment, Chufeng was invited to an incomparably bustling city. He chose a garden-like cave residence and accepted the interview here. Why are you guys asking this? I'm me. Speaking of which, I admire Wu Luanhui very much. His righteousness reaches the clouds, he's eager for justice, and he's awe-inspiring in his conduct. He's truly a model that we should respect. He's a hero and can be considered a heaven-warping character of his generation. Chufeng was generous in his praise and praised him wantonly. But the more people listened, the more they felt it was wrong. Why did it seem like he was praising himself? That was because more than 60% of people believed that Wu Luanhui was Chufeng. They were two sides of the same coin. Yet, wasn't he praising himself by praising Wu Luanhui like this? Did he still have any shame? Quick, look at the live broadcast. Great devil Chufeng is boasting. His face is tougher than our family's scabbard. The moon can bounce back into space when it collides with his face. In the starry sky, evolvers from every race had been paying attention to Chufeng recently. They felt that his rise was too swift and violent and was worth researching. Now that they heard news about him, they naturally surrounded him at the first possible moment. You evaluated Wu Luanhui. May I ask how you evaluate yourself? It's so embarrassing to evaluate myself. Chufeng had a modest look on his face. That meant that he absolutely wouldn't praise himself. Many people wanted to roll their eyes. You bastard! Weren't you praising yourself ferociously when you praised Wu Luanhui just now? You didn't even blush or feel embarrassed. However, I can quote other people's comments. The quasi-saint race said that Wu Luanhui and I are a pair of peerless geniuses. There are also many people of the same path who say that I'm honest and kind. They call me Divine King Chu, but I'm ashamed. F***ck. This was the word that everyone wanted to shout out. He was too F***king shameless. These old monsters in the distant damning Pure Land also heard the commotion. They heard that Chufeng was paid to appear on camera and that he had to pay a very high appearance fee before he accepted the interview. This immediately made their old faces feel ashamed and hot. Even though Chufeng didn't directly admit it, everyone felt that he was Wu Luanhui. What supremely righteous! Now it seemed that many people were speechless. This kind of title actually fell on this human trafficker's head. The contrast was really too big. After that, the old monsters of damning Pure Land were even more vexed. Great Devil Chufeng actually started to auction off opportunities to come into contact with him. For example, he directly called out a sky-high price of cosmic dollars for having a banquet together. This made the old monsters of damning Pure Land feel ashamed. After all, Chufeng had the title of damning Pure Land's son-in-law, but in the end, he was so reckless. In the starry sky, a group of Chu haters started to criticize Chufeng. They said that he was too cocky and who was willing to have a banquet with him? Who did he think he was? How dare he be so self-righteous? I'm the honest and kind divine King Chu. In order to rise up in a declining land, I've now fought all over the starry sky. Among the younger generation, it's hard to find a worthy opponent. Don't you guys want to know? You can discuss it at the banquet. Great Devil Chufeng directly said this. After that, all parts of the starry sky immediately went crazy because everyone knew that he had risen too quickly. Many people wanted to investigate his secret. His sudden rise was indeed considered a miracle. It was almost impossible to find a second case throughout the starry sky, especially when he came from a declining land like Earth. After that, many people bid and wanted to have a banquet with Great Devil Chufeng. This made the group of people's jaws drop. Great Devil Chufeng wanted to use all kinds of great medicine to exchange for a random banquet. It was too unreasonable. This made the group of people indignant and they couldn't help but curse him. However, the truth was just this outrageous. In the end, some mysterious people actually competed to increase the price to a sky-high price in order to snatch the right to have a banquet with Chufeng. This stunned the group of people because the price was even higher than what Chufeng had bid himself. Damn, it's just a quasi-sage old medicine. Motherf ***, what's so great about Great Devil Chufeng? He can actually do this? A banquet can be auctioned for such a sky-high price. Are those people crazy? Many people were dissatisfied and condemned the people who participated in the bidding. But no matter how much they quarreled, Chufeng's banquet was auctioned off. The old medicine that was sold made him very satisfied. As long as he successfully advanced, he could immediately use these accumulations that he had prepared in advance. What kind of world is this? A great devil is preparing a banquet, and there are people who eagerly run over to bid. It's too shameful and morally bankrupt. I want to cry. I've cultivated for 800 years, but I still haven't seen what a quasi-sage old medicine looks like. It's just a devil. He can earn it back with a banquet. The heavens are unfair. This matter caused huge waves. In the blink of an eye, it made people almost overlook the various shenanigans between Chufeng and Wu Luanhui. Not long after, a mysterious banquet began on Azure Billow Planet as expected. Chufeng invited the guests to a banquet and talked about some of his experiences on Earth. He also persuaded the graceful and elegant woman who wore a silver mask to go to Earth to take a look and take a stroll. This beautiful woman nodded and was very polite. After the banquet was over, she floated away. Not long after, someone leaked some of the topics of the banquet and immediately caused an uproar. Great Devil Chu invited people to go to Earth to cultivate? Bah, don't listen to him. He definitely wants to capture saintesses, divine sons, and so on. He wants to make a move on them, so he deliberately deceived them to go to Earth. Someone rebuked Chufeng. However, this was still mild. After that, an extremely serious matter happened. Someone directly targeted Chufeng. What Earth's rise? What ancient glory? What the most powerful evolutionary civilization remains? They're all dregs. Didn't we beat the ancient Earth into ruins back then? There's nothing left. How dare you have such confidence now? Where does your confidence come from? It doesn't matter if you're the great devil Chufeng. It's not like your ancestors weren't trampled by us back then. He spoke so fiercely and without mercy. This shocked many people. That was because Chufeng's power was at its peak. How many people dared to provoke him? What? Demon Chufeng, you're not convinced? I'm the descendant of a heavenly knight, and I'm still alive. Back then, my grandfather personally killed your ancestor. Look, what is this? These slaves are all descendants of your ancestor. They were abducted by my ancestor and finally tamed, giving birth to the so-called mixed bloodline. That person pointed at a group of people. They had no essence, energy, or spirit. They had long since been tamed and became his slaves. Chufeng was immediately furious. Regardless of whether what he said was true or false, some flames of fury had been ignited in the depths of his heart. He felt incomparably resentful. In his heart, the heavenly knights were even more detestable than the deity race and the Shilin clan. He had seen all kinds of ancient scenes on the moon. A group of heavenly knights, their hands stained with blood, specifically hunted down the old, weak women and children who had fled to the starry skies. They didn't even let the children off. They used their spears to pick them up, drenched in blood. In addition, they directly chopped off the heads of white-haired old men and mercilessly beheaded teenage girls. It could be said that they were cold-blooded and ruthless. They committed all sorts of evil deeds and were notorious. Even in the cosmos, after the ancient war, the heavenly knights' notoriety shook the starry skies. Many people loathed and despised their method. Now, a descendant of a heavenly knight had jumped out and actually dared to say such things. Haha, Demon Chufeng, do you still want revenge? Unfortunately, you don't know who I am and can't find me. That person laughed arrogantly. Following which, an old antique jumped out from the other side of the cosmos and said, "Heh heh, what a nostalgic ancient time." This old man experienced it personally. As a member of the Heavenly Knights, I was lucky enough to look down on a great medicine and live until now. Little Demon Chufeng, who do you think you are? How dare you brag about Earth? If a portion of the Heavenly Knights were still alive, they would directly crush you and turn you into dregs. There are still a lot of Heavenly Knights alive. While Chufeng was shocked, he was also burning with anger. He swore to eradicate them completely. Chufeng directly contacted the Wormhole Express Company and said, "Your VIP service mentioned that you can deduce which part of the cosmos it is based on the landform and architectural style of a certain planet, right?" That's right, that's right. May I ask what esteemed guest needs? Chapter 884. Esteemed guest, even if you provide us with a part of the landform of a planet, we can't guarantee that we'll be able to identify its coordinates in the cosmos. This is just a new value-added service for our esteemed guests. It's a new technology that needs to be perfected. At the same time, please keep it a secret. To be able to determine which planet it was in the vast cosmos with just a little bit of landform, this kind of technology was shocking and extremely terrifying. The cosmos was vast and boundless with billions of galaxies. Finding a planet was countless times more difficult than finding a needle in a haystack. One could see from this how powerful the Wormhole Express Company was. They were practically drawing out a detailed cosmic star chart. Just do your best and try to find the coordinates of these two places for me, Chufeng said. Very well, please wait patiently. The customer service lady from the Wormhole Express Company replied. However, it wasn't the lady with the magnetic voice from last time. This was a very complicated search task. The Wormhole Express Company had a huge database that had been accumulated over millions of years. It recorded the landforms of all the major celestial bodies in the vast cosmos. Of course, they had a certain degree of confidence mainly because they had recorded all the possible sources of life over the years. They firmly believed that if the evolvers of various races wanted to survive, they would most likely stay on these vital planets and not in the desolate cosmos. Otherwise, it would be impossible to record every planet in the cosmos because such a database didn't exist. Oh, so there's an old friend still alive. What a pleasant surprise. I thought that apart from the commanders, Nine Sparrow, Yuan Chinkong, and the others who became saints later on, the rest of my brothers had all died of old age. Who would have thought that I would hear such good news today? Haha. I'm also a heavenly knight and I'm still alive. Just as Chufeng was waiting, another old fellow jumped out and reminisced about the past with a happy and excited expression. The first two people were the eldest grandson of a heavenly knight and the second was a veteran heavenly knight. After the third person jumped out, the second person became extremely excited. He laughed loudly and said, "Haha, I'm not alone. Who would have thought that even after such a long period of time, we still haven't all died? Even if we haven't become saints, there are still brothers alive. Back then, I killed them to my heart's content on Earth. Then, I chased them into outer space and beheaded them until their heads rolled on the ground. Even their children couldn't escape. I successfully slaughtered them all. How satisfying!" The second person, the veteran horseman, introduced himself. His name was Tualan, and he had been a famous genius back in the day. Unfortunately, He had never been able to become a saint, and had been stuck at the pinnacle of the great circle of the golden body realm since ancient times. Now, his blood chi wasn't strong enough, and he was even more powerless to advance. The heavenly knight who jumped out last said with a delighted smile, "I'm the same as my old friend. Back on Earth, I was fortunate enough to eat the phoenix grass, which increased my lifespan. It's a pity that I didn't become a saint even though I killed so many people there and obtained many benefits. My name is Han Hong, and I belong to the Star Knight's Divine Punishment Battle Team. In ancient times we punished Earth and killed all the races on that superplanet that was once ranked 11th. We bathed in their blood and became glorious. Unfortunately, we are finally old now. What a pity." Han Hong sighed emotionally and began chatting with the second heavenly knight, Tualan. They introduced each other to which battle team they were in back then. This caused Chu Feng's eyes to spit fire and his heart to surge with killing intent. The old executioners from back then hadn't died out. Some of them were still living quite well. Now they were actually recalling the extraordinary years of the past and tearing open the cruelest and cruelest scars on Earth. This filled him with anger and he couldn't bear it. My 2 old brothers, you're still alive. Do you still remember me? I'm Yu Qibian. Back then, I was praised by the commander of the Heavenly Knights in front of the entire army. During that battle, our Heavenly Blood Battle Team once chased after the descendants of some major characters on Earth. We didn't let that group of young geniuses escape and slaughtered them cleanly, resolving a great threat. It was so satisfying to kill that time. Looking at the humiliated and unresigned expressions of those destined to rise up in the future, thinking about how they should have become major characters and giants in the future, I felt a great sense of accomplishment. We killed them while they were still growing, and their blood dyed outer space. However, it's a pity that only I survived from our Heavenly Blood Battle Team. At the same time, it's also quite regretful that I only obtained a secret medicine from Earth to extend my lifespan to this day, but I can't break through to the Saint Realm. Old brothers, if there's a chance, let's get together and reminisce about the ancient battle on Earth. It was truly the most glorious battle of our lives." Yu Qibian was very emotional as he recalled the past. However, this made Chu Feng seethe with anger. Those old executioners had obtained the medicine from Earth to extend their lifespan. They had trampled over countless corpses and committed all sorts of evil. Now that they were still alive, they still dared to spout such nonsense. It was too hateful. The old Heavenly Knight Tualan laughed and said cautiously, "There's no need for a gathering. After all, some people have always wanted to settle accounts with us. Unfortunately, we've concealed our identities and lived very comfortably. They'll never find us. For example, that devil Chu Feng. You ignorant junior, do you want to kill us for revenge? You won't get what you want in this lifetime. I've killed your ancestors and slaughtered hundreds of women and children on Earth. What can you do to me? Oh, Brother Tualan is right. There's no need for us to meet. Come, across the starry skies, let's toast and celebrate the fact that old fellows like us are still alive. Although the most glorious battle of ancient times has passed, our blood still surges when we think back to it. We're very excited and happy." The Heavenly Knight Han Hong also raised his cup with a smile. At the same time, he added, "Are there any old brothers still alive? Let's toast and celebrate." They drank together. Yu Qibian sighed. Some of the commanders are still alive. Additionally, some of the captains from the powerful battle squads are also alive. They've all become saints. Additionally, there's the 9 Sparrow, Yuan Chenkong, and other ordinary members like us. Some of them have also become saints and are still alive. The others are probably dead. They're all heroes and good men. Han Hong said, "The surviving commanders, battle squad leaders Yuan Chenkong, and the others have all entered the chaotic universe in search of fortunes. Otherwise, if that brat Chu Feng dares enter the starry skies, I'll slap him to death with a flip of my hand. It'll be no different from killing a fly. So what if you're heaven-defying? It's not like we haven't killed geniuses before. We won't give you time to grow. Seniors, you are chatting very happily. My grandfather mentioned your names in the past. There are still many collections in the clan now. There are so-called descendants of Earth, and their bloodlines are indeed very strong. After taking them in as slaves, it is very convenient to use them. But out of safety considerations, it's not convenient to contact you seniors. Otherwise, I could gift you some. The first person who jumped out spoke once again. He wasn't a heavenly knight but the descendant of a notorious executioner. Tualan said, "Good child, we appreciate your intentions. You don't need to gift those slaves. We killed many of them back then and took in some of them. But they were too unyielding. It's not convenient to use them unless part of their spirit is destroyed. After so many years, we've killed them all." These people's conversation caused a huge uproar on the Black Blood platform and the Origin Beast platform. Great waves swept through the starry skies. People were in an uproar. Many young people didn't know much about that battle since ancient times. After hearing their words, they felt for the first time that the ancestors of the great demon King Chu Feng were too pitiful. The Heavenly Knights are indeed notorious. No wonder, even though they were part of the Allied army back then, they could only hide their identities and hide for fear of being liquidated. What kind of people are they? Of course, there were also races hostile to Earth who were cheering loudly. They called the group of executioners and the Heavenly Knights the Iron Blood Vanguard. We really admire the glory of the Heavenly Knights back then. What a pity! If only the members of the Heavenly Knights had survived and destroyed Earth again. Their blood and iron expedition back then really makes people's blood boil. It's glorious and soul-stirring. Every race in the cosmos began to debate fervently. Some people condemned the Heavenly Knights, while others held them in high esteem. Their views were completely different. Chu Feng was furious and urged the Wormhole Express Company. He didn't want to wait a moment longer and wanted nothing more than to set off immediately. "Esteemed guest, our workload has increased because you've provided us with some landforms of the locations of 2 veteran Heavenly Knights. It's difficult to find them in the database because there's a sea of similar images to compare. Fortunately, we've made some headway. If you want to set off now, we've already determined the coordinates of a certain place and can open a wormhole for you." Chu Feng nodded with a gloomy expression. "Very well, open the super wormhole immediately. I'll do my best to wipe out these Heavenly Knights. I hope the Wormhole Express Company won't disappoint me." The Radish Star was a small and remote planet in a corner of the cosmos. Almost no one paid attention to it, and few experts passed by this place. Tualan lived here in seclusion. He bathed in the morning glow and sat on a recliner on a cliff, feeling the vitality of the rising sun. It made his aged body feel as though it had recovered its vitality. At this moment, he was wearing a faint smile that contained mockery and dissatisfaction. He spoke on the Black Blood platform, saying, "How laughable. Earth was crippled by us back then, and now they've risen from the ashes. They're delusional enough to want to rise again. Who ranked them? Do they think they're worthy of being in the top 10? There's a shortage of experts. They don't live up to their name. It's because we're all old. If the members of the Heavenly Knights were still alive, we'd definitely wipe them out again. Also, that little bastard Chu Feng is really arrogant, but I think he'll have a short life and won't live long. Just wait and see. Before long, he'll be slapped into mush by someone." Through the Black Blood platform, one could see a cold smile on Tualan's old face. There was a tinge of mockery and cruelty in the depths of his eyes. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a wormhole silently opened above the cliff, full of golden morning glow behind him. Chu Feng suddenly descended. Tualan sensed the movement and jumped to his feet. He turned around abruptly and made a defensive move immediately. However, even though he was at the great perfection of the golden body realm, he still couldn't evade even though he had accumulated enough years and his cultivation was extremely profound. His vitality was dried up, his body was old, and his terrifying cultivation couldn't circulate smoothly. When Chu Feng descended from the sky, he grabbed him by the neck and lifted him up. At this moment, Chu Feng's eyes were filled with a cold, ruthless, and terrifying light. He looked down at him as though he was holding an old dog and said coldly, "Heavenly Knight, scum. You're very conceited and arrogant. Are you sleeping in your past glory? Your grandpa Chu Feng is here to collect the debt." The sea of stars was shaken and everyone was shocked. The demon king Chu Feng had actually killed his way to the door and found the seclusion of a veteran heavenly knight. This was too shocking. You. Tualan was also shocked and his voice was trembling. He struggled with all his might, but he couldn't move because of Chu Feng's suppression. His neck was almost broken, and his face was flushed red with blue veins popping out. His limbs were violently struggling, but he couldn't break free. You? Old scum, I'll send you on your way one by one. Just you wait, shouted Chu Feng. Then, with a pop, he crushed Tualan with one hand and blood splattered everywhere. Then, he added a reincarnation blade to make Tualan's spiritual body wail and dissolve inch by inch. He couldn't even escape a strand of his will. He was completely strangled alive and destroyed in body and soul. My grandfather killed that group of refugees on Earth and caused their heads to roll and rivers of blood to flow. He forged the glory of our race today. The descendant of the Heavenly Knight's voice came to an abrupt stop at this point because he had seen the live broadcast of Tualan's death. In the blink of an eye, his hair stood on end. The void above his castle split open and a wormhole appeared. Chu Feng descended, covered in blood. A descendant of scum dares to call himself glory and provoke me like this? Die. Chu Feng descended from the sky and stomped down. This descendant of the Heavenly Knight turned into a bloody mist with a bang and exploded. Chu Feng shouted, "All of you, just you wait. Wash your necks and prepare to die. Not a single Heavenly Knight will live. All of you will go to hell and die." Chapter 885. That famous Heavenly Knight's eldest grandson couldn't even make a sound before he was stomped on the spot by Chu Feng. His body and soul were both destroyed. This scene was broadcasted live and shook the starry skies. How had Demon King Chu found the enemy? This made all parties nervous and uneasy. Chu Feng stood in the air with his hair hanging loosely behind him. His eyes were like cold spears as he said, "The Heavenly Knights are notorious. They only dare to bully the old, the weak, women and children. You're all shameless people. What do you have to show off? Come out if you have the gut. I'll beat 100 of you." His killing intent soared. Although he had killed 2 people, it was still difficult to quell the flames of anger in his heart. He had seen those historical imprints on the moon and it was as if he had truly experienced that battle. These Heavenly Knights were cold-blooded and merciless. Even toddlers were cut into 2 with one slash. Their tender faces were filled with terror as they fell into a pool of blood. It was truly a miserable sight. There was also a pregnant woman who was picked up by the inhumane knights with their spears. 1 corpse and 2 lives were taken and then thrown out. They were competing to see who could kill the most people. This was a group of cold-blooded bastards with no humanity to speak of. They didn't attack the strong, but the old, the weak, the sick, and the disabled. Most of them were women and children. Chu Feng delayed on this relatively small planet for a while and rescued all the slaves. He then killed all the members of the Heavenly Knight lineage and changed their ruling position. However, he also sighed. The descendants of the ancient Earth ancestors had been completely enslaved. It was difficult to change their spirit and willpower. They were completely crippled. Chu Feng gave up on taking them away and let them develop here. In any case, they were already free, but their spirit no longer belonged to Earth. Just like the Shilin clan, although they shared the same origin as Earth, they had long since betrayed Earth spiritually. Now, they had no relationship with Earth and could be considered an enemy race. Sky-piercing vampire, please open the super wormhole and proceed to the next destination, Chu Feng said. He didn't linger and immediately set off once more. Cherry Orchid Planet was a small planet with beautiful scenery. The mountains and plains were covered with cherry orchids, their fragrance assailing the nostrils. The petals were sparkling with a brilliant radiance. Regardless of whether it was the plains or the mountains, there were many lakes. They were like large pieces of azure crystals covering the mountains and rivers, flickering with a sparkling luster. Although the level of the evolved civilization was rather low, Yuchibian liked this place very much. He had almost exterminated the original natives and made this place his territory. He enjoyed himself every day. In the first half of his life, he had plundered everywhere and obtained a large amount of resources. It was enough for him to squander as he cultivated until his later years. Unfortunately, he was unable to break through to the quasi-sage domain all along and was stuck at golden body perfection for many years. Not long ago, he was still feeling elated as he reminisced about the glory of the past. But now, he was horrified. He saw a heavenly knight of the same generation being killed. His entire body trembled. He turned around and left. He wanted to leave this planet and escape into the depths of the vast universe. He felt that he had been targeted by a pair of cold and merciless eyes. Someone wanted to settle the score with him. Yujubian, you still want to leave? Didn't you say that if the Star Knight reappeared, he could kill me with a single slap? Your young Master Chu is here. A super wormhole opened up in the sky and Chu Feng walked out. He looked down at the mountains and rivers below and shouted loudly, scaring Yujubian so much that his hair stood on end. He looked up at the sky. As expected, it was the great demon whose name had recently shaken the sea of stars. Tell me, back then, you killed all the children of some major characters of ancient Earth and were proud of it. You were praised by the commander of the Star Knight in front of the entire army. You killed their children, and not only did you not feel ashamed, you even took pride in it. Just how shameless are you? Chu Feng angrily rebuked. At the same time, he could imagine that if those children could grow up, they would certainly become giants of a region. At the very least, they would be saint-level experts. Unfortunately, the group of youths with the most potential on Earth had been strangled by the vicious Star Knight just like that. Chu Feng, let's talk things out. Back then, I wasn't the only one who attacked. Although those youths were small, they were all very powerful. Our Heavenly Blood Squad suffered disastrous casualties. I didn't do much, so in the end, I was the only one who survived. It's not fair for you to settle the score with me like this. Yuchibian cried out. The older one got, the more one was afraid of death. After living for so many years and enjoying his life, he still couldn't bear to die. Chu Feng was furious. You shameless old executioner, your whole body reeks of blood. The ancient times have already passed, but the smell of blood still lingers on your body. You still dare to talk to me about fairness? He swooped down like a thunderbolt and streaked across the vast sky. He let out a loud sound and caused the mountains and rivers below to crack and then explode. This was the result of the powerful energy he was emitting. The main reason was that the level of this small planet was too low and lacked the protection of order runes. He was like a god here. Bang! Chu Feng kicked out. Yuchibian failed to dodge several times and in the end, he was kicked heavily on his body. Even though he was at the consummate golden body realm, he couldn't do anything about it. With a puff, half of his body exploded and turned into a bloody mist. He screamed and howled in grief as the upper half of his body flew out and smashed into a large mountain. During this time, Chu Feng used the Origin Beast platform to broadcast the whole process. The scene shook the starry skies and everyone was silent. Chu Feng stood in the sky and said, "I hate that I can't go back to the ancient times. I really want to kill all of you so-called heavenly knights in that era. You only dare to lay your hands on those children and women, yet you still have the face to brag about your glory. Today, none of you can escape. I'll trample you to death." With a swoosh, he charged over once again. He took a step forward and suppressed Yu Qibian below, forming an invisible force field, the divine domain. Yu Qibian's neck was red and the veins on his face bulged. He used his most powerful energy and trump cards, but it was useless. He couldn't break free. In the end, amidst the sounds, he saw himself breaking apart inch by inch. His bones and flesh were all melting. The pain was unbearable, and at the same time, his heart was filled with boundless terror. "Ah!" He howled in anguish, screaming in endless pain. But in the end, he couldn't escape death. His body and soul were destroyed. Heavenly knights are all dregs, people who bully the weak and fear the strong. Back then, you guys only dared to take advantage of the situation and bully the old, the weak, and the children. You're all trash. Chu Feng roared furiously. He had vented some of the resentment in his heart, but it was still difficult to calm down. He searched the planet and raided Yu Qibian's lair. He once again asked the Sky Pass Corporation to open a super wormhole and rushed to his next destination. In the starry skies, the evolvers of all races were petrified and silent. The great demon Chu Feng was truly terrifying. He had killed from one end of the universe to the other, moving unhindered across the lands and continuously killing Heavenly Knight. It was truly shocking. Heavenly Knights, aren't you reminiscing about your past glory? All of you, come out and I'll kill you until your heads roll. Go to hell. Chu Feng set out toward the glacial star, a star in the desolate region of the universe. There were very few living planets here, and 90% of the area was lifeless. The last Heavenly Knight, Han Hong, was here. He had boasted shamelessly about being bathed in the blood of ancient Earth's evolvers. He was very proud. Chu Feng had killed his way over and entered this misty, but still living planet. There was a large forest below. He swooped down in search of Han Hong. Buzz. In the blink of an eye, 9 beams of heavenly sword light rushed up and tore apart the firmament. It was too terrifying and caused the entire planet to tremble. The main reason was that this planet was very small and its laws and order weren't complete. There was a possibility of it collapsing if slightly more powerful energy was released. A killing trap? Chu Feng flew rapidly and evaded the 9 beams of heavenly sword light. He stood in the void and looked down at the great mountains below with cold eyes. He knew that there was most likely something wrong with this so-called Heavenly Knight. This was clearly a meticulously prepared killing trap. He realized that someone wanted to kill him and use this incident to lure him into a trap. It was hard to say whether or not this Heavenly Knight, Han Hong, really existed. Buzz. Countless runes lit up in the surroundings like rivers of molten iron. They were bright red and flourishing, and at the same time, they overflowed with a terrifying energy aura. This was a complex and large-scale domain that locked down the heaven and earth and trapped Chu Feng within. Using a domain to deal with me? Chu Feng sneered and then frowned. He realized that something was wrong and a sense of danger arose in his heart. This was a special domain that was very complicated and pieced together. It trapped him in all directions and was indeed very troublesome. The most important thing was the problem of its level. It had the aura of a quasi-sage. Chu Feng immediately became incomparably serious. Could a quasi-sage be slaughtered here? "Who are you people?" asked Chu Feng. A metallic fortress appeared in the depths of the mountain range. It was grand and emitted an oppressive aura. It was actually a quasi-sage weapon. 6 people stood side by side on top of it. They were all very thin and their faces were covered by black cloaks. Their true appearances couldn't be seen, and each of them carried a large sword on their back. At the same time, they emitted a bone-piercing killing intent. They didn't conceal their hostility toward Chu Feng. Hiding your head but showing your tail. There's no need to say more. I can guess who you are. You're from Skypiercer. Chu Feng squinted his eyes and said with surging killing intent. This assassin organization had used the battlefield fortress to descend upon Earth. They wanted to completely turn that place into their backyard and divide up the various fortunes left behind from ancient times. In the end, that super sage weapon, the large-scale battlefield fortress, exploded. Tens of thousands of elite assassins died in one go and the losses were disastrous. In addition, the race's old ancestor at the Heaven Illuminator realm was also killed by Yao Yao's grandfather. In the end, he fled for his life in panic. Moreover, this race was also one of the main culprits that destroyed Earth. Who else? Get out here. Chu Feng sensed that these weren't the only people who had come. There were others. Chu Feng, you're just a junior. It's not good to be too savage. You'll die young. You won't be able to escape today. A grave has already been dug for you. You must die today. A few more people walked out. There were purple-haired people, black-haired people, and white-haired people. They were all at the Golden Body Perfection realm. There were 5 great experts in total. Moreover, they didn't conceal that they were from the Shilin clan. Today they had come to eliminate Chu Feng. Chu Feng flew into a rage and said, Shilin clan, do you still have any sense of shame? Traitors, you rebelled against Earth back then. If it weren't for you, how could the forebears have been almost completely annihilated? You cooperated with us from the inside and let the enemy in. Do you still have the face to live in this world? He loathed the Shilin clan incomparably. Back then, they still called themselves the Shilin army. It was fine if they rebelled, but they even turned around and killed their own people. They were even more sinister than the other races. They killed until corpses were strewn all over the field and countless heads rolled down. That battle was too miserable. None of the tribes had taken any precautions against them, which led to disastrous casualties and the deaths of too many heroes. Additionally, they had been hunting down and killing the people who had escaped from Earth and their descendants since ancient times. They were even more savage than the other races. I must kill you all. Chu Feng swore that he should go to the Shilin clan's old lair. Regardless of whether or not they were going against the heavens, he would completely destroy this clan. Heh, Junior, you're just a madman. You're even fiercer than Yao Yao back then. Do you really want to be unrivaled in the starry skies? Dream on. I'll strangle you today just like Yao Yao back then. You withered prematurely, and we won't let you truly mature. That person stood out, his entire body flickering with a cold luster. This was a metallic man from the machine race. 4 people from this race had also come, and there was a giant battleship beside them flickering with quasi-saint runes. It intimidated the area, following which, a few old men with black aura surging from their bodies walked out. They were sinister and terrifying. They were from the Netherworld race, the main force that charged at the forefront back then. Back then, their strength was ranked 12th, and they received the support of damning Pure Land to destroy ancient Earth and replace it. Brat, your life is really tough. You've grown to such a stage that even we feel threatened. The Tao friend from the machine race is right. We should strangle you, just like how our ancestors killed Yao Yao back then. We'll cut off her future path. Today we'll also destroy your body and soul. An old man from the Netherworld race spoke with a hoarse voice. He expressed a terrifying killing intent towards Chu Feng. It was undisguised and didn't need to be concealed. A few people from the Netherworld race brought a great killing weapon. It was a long halberd that was completely pitch black, and its quasi-saint energy undulated violently. Chu Feng said coldly, "A bunch of things that are worse than pigs and dogs have all jumped out today. It just so happens that it saves me some effort to kill all of you. Of course, I'll definitely descend upon your lair and planet after I become a saint. I'll imitate you and massacre them all." 4 people from the spirit race also appeared. They brought along the divine blood banner. The blood-colored banner fluttered and let out a terrifying sound as it emitted powerful saint-level energy undulations. Apart from this, there was also the corpse race, one of the top 10 races in the universe. They also brought along a terrifying killing weapon to suppress and kill Chu Feng. Chu Feng, Wu Luanhui, the divine son of my race, is already dead. What right do you have to come back alive from the foreign land? Regardless of whether you killed him or not, you should go to hell. Someone from the corpse race sneered. Back then, they had a conflict with Wu Luanhui in the damning Pure Land because they seriously suspected that Yen Luo's death was related to Wu Luanhui. They wanted to kill him. In addition, there's no harm in telling you. During the ancient war, apart from the deity race supporting the netherworld race, the top 10 also had our corpse race secretly supporting them. We dispatched heaven illuminators to encircle and hunt them down. A faint red glow appeared in Chu Feng's eyes. Almost all the culprits from the ancient times had appeared to encircle and annihilate him. This naturally made his killing intent fill the air, and he wished he could kill everyone immediately. Apart from those people, there were also people from the deity race. Even though their ranking had dropped, their foundations were still very terrifying as they dispatched 8 golden arhat. In addition, there were also some races who dispatched experts with great killing weapons. At the very least, they were at the quasi-saint level. It wasn't that they didn't have more powerful weapons, but the main reason was that even more powerful weapons were very difficult to activate. The consumption was too terrifying. Of course, what made Chu Feng most afraid were the divine magnets brought by the various races. Those were domain magnetic stone diagrams that had been engraved long ago. After piecing them together, they were terrifyingly powerful. He was trapped in the center, and the various races were prepared to grind him to death. This made his heart palpitate. The only fortunate thing was that the various races didn't know he had become a domain grandmaster. Even though they saw him use a domain to strangle the little Saint Luo Yong in the damning Pure Land, no one thought it was him who had set it up. They all thought it was a ready-made domain from the damning Pure Land. Slaughter the demon in one battle and strangle the so-called genius of Earth. Don't vainly think of living on. We've already determined you to be a dead man. Attack. The group of people activated the domain magnetic stone diagrams they had brought from their respective races. They wanted to thoroughly slaughter Chu Feng and behead this most powerful youth who had walked out of Earth. I swear that I'll definitely descend upon your planet in the near future. An eye for an eye, an eye for an eye, an eye for an eye. I'll have an ultimate reckoning, said Chu Feng. At the same time, he had a feeling that all kinds of situations were so grim. It was as though an ultimate showdown was about to take place. A special understanding emerged in his heart. Could it be that he was going to leave this world and enter the Yang realm? At his level, his divine instincts were exceptionally sharp. He could always comprehend certain things in advance. Chapter 886. The mountain range was majestic and filled with old trees such as pines and cypresses. There were even some majestic silver waterfalls that cascaded down from the mountains that were thousands of meters tall. It was a magnificent sight. However, this area was also filled with killing intent. Numerous runes lit up in the mountains, causing many waterfalls to flow in reverse and become part of the domain. Some mountains even rumbled as they rose from the ground and lined up in all directions. There was no need to think too much. There were divine swords, ominous flags, and divine magnets within the mountains. This was changing the world, and completely changing the environment to trap Chu Feng. Chu Feng's expression was solemn as he held a bracelet in each hand. One was as white as jade and was shining brightly. It was the diamond chakram. The other was glowing like a sky full of twinkling stars. In addition, there were complicated patterns like nebulae and black holes. This was the Star Mother gold bracelet he had seized from the myriad star physique Su Qingxian. It was also priceless and was a precious material in the world. Recently, Chu Feng had swept through all his enemies and even killed the Outerverse little Saint Luoyong. This was the first time he was holding the bracelet in both hands against an enemy. It was clear how serious he was. When our ancestors united, they once killed and injured those so-called experts of the ancient earth, exterminating their entire race. In the end, only a few escaped and escaped. Now, these mixed-blood descendants are delusional enough to think of reviving and rising to power? Stop dreaming, old brothers. Kill this little demon and extinguish their hopes of revival. Isn't he the best fighter among his peers? Kill him in advance, said an elder from the Netherworld race. As one of the most important primary culprits back then, they were extremely worried that one day, Chu Feng would destroy them after he became a heaven illuminator. Kill! Murderous cries resounded in all directions. There were already dozens of people at the great circle of the gold profound realm from these primary culprits. In addition to the troops that had followed them here, there were many figures and the sounds of killing shook the heavens. Chi! A total of 81 flying swords soared up from within the mountains. Some were lustrous violet, some were dark green, some were scarlet red like blood, some were brilliant silver, some were golden like a rainbow, some were black like an abyss. Among them, there were 9 that were especially dazzling and dazzling. Those were the main killing swords, making even Chu Feng's expression change. He raised his eyebrows and faced them seriously. It was because those were quasi-holy artifacts. Buzz. That was the trembling of the flying swords as they swept over. 81 flying swords attacked at the same time in such a fierce and domineering manner. It was a spectacular scene. Some of the flying swords were only the size of a palm, but they caused the void to tremble. Some of the flying swords were hundreds of meters long, like a small metal mountain smashing down. It was terrifying. Chu Feng used the ground shrink secret technique, his body moving like a beam of light, narrowly dodging the attacks of many flying swords. However, there were also some flying swords that accelerated, turning around and sweeping towards him. He couldn't evade them. The most important thing was that there were countless runes in the surroundings. It was precisely because the domain had been activated that these flying swords were instilled with raging waves of energy. Only then could the flying swords interweave into an astonishing divine rainbow. Chu Feng's eyes were emotionless and extremely calm. At such a critical juncture, he didn't panic in the slightest. He was fearless even when facing the attack of a quasi-holy artifact. Clang! His arms spread out, and the 2 bracelets in his hands released a dazzling radiance. Now, his strength couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as before, so the power erupting from the 2 secret treasures was naturally boundlessly terrifying. What was Mother Metal? It was indestructible and indestructible. Ordinary people couldn't refine it. This was its basic characteristic. Therefore, even before it evolved into an ultimate weapon, it could still contend against various types of secret treasures without worrying about damage. It was sturdy and immortal, stronger than the body of a god. In a split second, sparks flew in all directions and an ear-piercing sound rang out. When many flying swords charged over, they were all swept and struck by the 2 bracelets in his hands. Clang, clang, clang. This kind of sound was too ear-piercing and made people's teeth ache. There were close to 100 powerful flying swords, and the weakest one was refined by a person at the Golden Arhat realm. In the end, many of them were directly smashed by Chu Feng. Clang, clang, clang. Amidst the ear-piercing sound, the flying swords dimmed one after another, and were smashed flying by Chu Feng. Many of them broke in an instant and broke into two pieces. In addition, some flying swords were smashed into pieces by the diamond chakram in Chu Feng's hands. One of the characteristics of the diamond chakram's mother metal was that the more energy poured into it, the more terrifying it would become. It was even heavier than a mountain and concentrated on such a small volume. Some so-called flying swords were directly smashed into pieces and turned into fine powder. As for the starry sky mother metal, it was also very terrifying. The center of its ring turned into a black hole and directly swallowed the flying swords. Over a dozen of them had already flown in and were stored in its inner space. How is this possible? This is a domain that can slaughter quasi-saints, yet it can't kill this demon. He's still at the Golden Arhat realm, yet he's actually already so powerful. This is simply the second of Yao Yao, the reappearance of an ancient evildoer. A group of people cried out in surprise. Even though they were enemies and hated Chu Feng to death, they were still astonished by his strength and terrifying power. Buzz. However, what happened next was even more terrifying. The 9 main swords were abnormally sharp and resplendent. They illuminated the sky boundlessly and flew over like eternal light. These were quasi-saint flying swords. Kill! Chu Feng bellowed angrily as he activated all his essence, qi, and spirit. In particular, his blood changed from scarlet to azure, and even the color of his hair changed. This was the manifestation of the humanoid king physique's awakening. Of course, this was only the first stage. Different levels of humanoid kings had different colors in their blood. At this moment, Chu Feng's aura rose sharply, and he truly had the dignity of a quasi-saint. All kinds of divine chains of order interweaved intensely outside his body and spread out with a boom like a spider web, protecting him within. In particular, the 2 bracelets in his hands were completely different. It was as though they had a life of their own as they trembled, rumbled, and emitted frightening rays of light. One of the bracelets was as white as jade and dazzling. The other bracelet was densely covered with nebulas, and a black hole appeared. It was as though the cosmos and the starry sky had reappeared. Boom! Clang! At the same time that the blue blood qi around Chu Feng's body rose sharply, he waved the 2 bracelets and forcefully shook off the 9 giant flying swords, smashing them into sparks that filled the sky. It was as though a group of meteors had traversed the sky and were surging above this planet with incomparable intensity. How is this possible? Even quasi-saint weapons with the support of domains can't kill him? Is this still an evolver at the Golden Arhat realm? Not to mention the others, even the old monsters from the deity race who hated Chu Feng the most were horrified. They cried out in surprise at his terrifying combat power and simply didn't dare to believe their eyes. Clang! After Chu Feng erupted with the divine chains of order, even the weapons at the quasi-saint level couldn't withstand it when he activated the 2 treasures in his hands. Some of the flying swords were smashed until nicks appeared on some of them, and some of them were wailing as though they were about to break. Other than that, Chu Feng also used the Star Mother gold bracelets to forcefully seize 2 quasi-saint weapons. "Open for me!" roared Chu Feng. When he saw a quasi-saint flying sword carrying the strongest energy slash over, the ground split open, and hundreds of giant rocks weighing hundreds of thousands of kilograms flew high into the sky. Chu Feng was also furious and unleashed his might here. He immediately threw out the diamond chakram and smashed it with all the strength in his body. Clang! How terrifying was his current strength! This bracelet's weight and speed would change according to the amount of energy he poured into it. It was now boundlessly terrifying, especially when it was concentrated on a small bracelet. That kind of impact was universally shocking. Crack! The diamond chakram smashed a quasi-saint flying sword in half. This made all the old monsters at the scene dumbfounded. This was simply like a legend. An evolver at the Golden Arhat realm was using his own weapon to break a flying sword. It was too shocking. Among the 9 flying swords, 2 were broken, 2 were collected, and 2 were heavily damaged. They were full of nicks and scars. The last 3 flew away at top speed. The killing field constructed by the flying swords had been broken. Chu Feng, you're very strong, but you should still die. Dao friends, why are you still hiding? Attack together and kill him. Activate all the divine magnets and awaken the domain divine diagram. Kill him! Roared an old man from the netherworld race. At the same time, he also joined forces with others to take out a large halberd and hack at Chu Feng while activating the divine magnet. In the blink of an eye, there were too many densely packed domain runes in the mountains and rivers. Those people wanted to refine Chu Feng and kill him here. Do you really think I'm a vegetarian? Chu Feng had long since opened his fiery eyes and was gazing at the area, observing the secrets of the various domains. This was a great reliance of his. With this kind of ultimate eye technique, he could see through all kinds of secret. Then, he put away the 2 bracelets and exchanged them for 2 other weapons. One of them was a magnetic seal made partly of divine magnets and partly of magnetic marrow. This was one of the highest materials for deploying domains. Magnetic marrow could only be encountered and not sought. This was a treasure he had seized from the Origin magnetic sacred physique back in the Eastern Sea. To domain researchers, this was a precious material. Chu Feng held the magnetic seal in his left hand and rushed forward. He smashed it suddenly, causing the sky to collapse and the earth to crack. The various domain runes on the ground became chaotic and immediately dimmed down. He was a domain grandmaster. No one would have thought he had already reached this level. With the help of the magnetic marrow seal, he was like a tiger that had grown wings and was boundlessly terrifying. Even a technique that could trap and kill a quasi-saint couldn't stop him. Other than this, a purple bamboo appeared in Chu Feng's hand. It had a total of 9 sections. This was a divine weapon he had seized from the little Saint Luo Yong from the chaotic universe. Moreover, it was a precious saint-grade weapon. He swung it and blasted it in all directions. Damn it, he can actually activate a divine weapon? The group of people was shaken. It was already difficult for a golden arhat to activate a quasi-saint weapon, but Chu Feng was actually wielding a fine saint-grade weapon with boundless might. With a boom, the domain runes in the surroundings were originally disturbed by Chu Feng's magnetic marrow seal. Now, they immediately collapsed after being bombarded by the deity's striking whip. Kill! The surrounding people were terrified. If they really let Chu Feng out, it would be like a fierce tiger facing a flock of sheep. Everyone would be threatened. Demon King Chu Feng, go to hell! The people from the machine race roared wildly. They activated a huge battleship that flickered with dense runes and fired out a firepower. Huh! Chu Feng was horrified. The battleship was carved with quasi-saint runes, but the energy it erupted with was at the saint-grade level. This attack was too terrifying. At the same time, the people from the deity race also roared angrily. They held a few dazzling violet heavenly thunder crystals in their hands. They emitted saint-grade fluctuations and were ready to throw them out at any time. Additionally, the netherworld race took out a black skull like a demonic god from hell. It roared and rapidly grew larger as it pounced toward Chu Feng. Deity Blood Banner, transform all vitality. The spirit race roared. A fragment flew out from that terrifying banner. It was bright red and glistening. It was a fragment of an ultimate weapon from the past. Even though it was only a small piece and not even an inch long, it still made people's hearts palpitate. It was comparable to a saint's might. Kill! The people from the Shilin race also roared angrily. They drew an odd large bow and shot a peachwood arrow to kill Chu Feng. In the blink of an eye, these old monsters all attacked and used their great weapons. Boom! Chu Feng brandished the purple bamboo. It was known as the deity's striking whip, and it directly shattered the mountains and rivers, causing the entire mountain range to collapse. It destroyed the domain and advanced forward. Die, he roared. Those people also roared angrily. The most intense collision broke out, and neither side could avoid it. Boom! Chu Feng coughed out large mouthfuls of blood and was sent flying. His body was full of wounds, and he had received the most serious attack. This was even caused by him activating the soul bell at the critical moment. Otherwise, even someone as powerful as him with the humanoid monarch physique might die with a grievance. However, he achieved astonishing result. He completely blasted open the domain from before and charged out. Kill! The people from the machine race roared once again. They urged the battleship to attack. Other than that, the people from Skypiercer also drove the battle fortress and urged Chu Feng to launch a fatal attack. Meanwhile, the deity race's violet heavenly thunder crystals had already been thrown out and exploded with a loud bang. Boom! This small planet disintegrated and was destroyed in the most intense battle. It broke into pieces and formed a huge shockwave. Chu Feng's 7 orifices were bleeding, and his injuries were very serious. However, he was brandishing the deity's striking whip and directly lashed the Skypiercer's battle fortress into pieces. It turned into a huge ball of flames and exploded like a small sun. Is this going to be one of the last battles before I leave the netherworld? Chu Feng suddenly came to this realization. Then, a dense haze appeared in his heart and he felt very heavy. Kill! He charged over fearlessly even though his whole body was overflowing with blood. The humanoid monarch physique's recovery power was too powerful. His body was originally about to be torn into pieces, but now it was rapidly healing. Bang! 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 Chu Feng brandished the deity's striking whip. In just one breath, he blew up a few old monsters at the Golden Body Perfection realm who had rushed out of the battle fortress and turned them into a few balls of bloody mist. The troops from Skypiercer were completely annihilated. Who else? Chu Feng's eyes were incomparably frightening. He turned into a bolt of lightning and swooped down toward the machine race. Before that huge battleship could display its might, he ruthlessly lashed out with the deity's striking whip. This was a treasure among sacred weapons and a great killing weapon. It directly smashed the 30,000-meter-long battleship into pieces and turned it into the most dazzling flames. Even space seemed to be annihilated. Ah! The few people from the machine race were howling in grief. Although there were remnant souls that rushed out, Chu Feng immediately followed up with a whip. The purple bamboo cut through the void and blew them up. Dregs, all of you are trash. Who dares to fight with me? Roared Chu Feng. He charged toward the netherworld race. A few old monsters roared and their faces were deathly pale, but they still activated their great killing weapons and wanted to counterattack and kill Chu Feng. However, in front of the deity's striking whip, in front of the sacred level purple bamboo, their counterattack was not strong enough. Even though they used sacred-level thunder secret treasures, they were still hit by the whip one by one, exploding. Blood and bones flew everywhere, there was no suspense. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.